Hello, beautiful people. You've just landed on Cross Harry. Today's featured story is what if Kratos found Harry in the cupboard and raised him as the god of magic and war. If you're new here, welcome to the family. Hit subscribe and the notification bell. And if you're returning, you know the drill, like and share. Enough talk, let's get into the story. Chapter 1, Blood and Magic. Kratos felt at the moment he crossed between worlds, a pull, insistent and strange, tugging at something deep within him. The air here tasted different. Weaker. The gods felt distant, their influence a mere whisper compared to the thunderous presence he'd known before. He stood in darkness, his ashen skin gleaming under a street lamp that flickered nervously in his presence. Suburban houses lined the street with their manicured lawns and identical shapes. This realm was ordinary. After destroying Olympus, after killing Zeus, after everything, he'd somehow landed in this mundane place of mortals and their small lives. But that pull remained. Something powerful was nearby. Something magical. Kratos adjusted the blades of exile on his back and followed the sensation. His bare feet made no sound on the pavement as he moved between pools of lamplight. The weapons hummed faintly against his skin, resonating with whatever power source he was tracking. Number 4, Privet Drive looked no different from its neighbors, yet the energy emanating from within made Kratos' skin prickle. Divine instinct told him to investigate. The ghost of Sparta had long ago learned to trust those instincts. Breaking in required no effort. The lock gave way with the slightest pressure from his fingers. Inside, the house was silent except for thunderous snoring from upstairs. But the magical signature wasn't coming from there. It was coming from below. Kratos followed the sensation to a small door beneath the stairs. A cupboard, locked from the outside with several bolts. Inside, he sensed life. Young life. And power, raw and untapped. He slid the bolts open with a single finger and pulled the door wide. A small boy with wild black hair lay curled on a thin mattress, glasses askew on his face even in sleep. Bruises marked his arms. His clothes were several sizes too large, hanging off his frame like sails without wind. But most striking was the jagged scar on his forehead, a lightning bolt that radiated magical energy unlike anything Kratos had encountered. The boy's eyes snapped open. Green eyes, startlingly bright, met Kratos' golden gaze. "Are you death?" the child whispered, showing no fear despite the massive, ash-white warrior standing over him. "Uncle Vernon said I'd die if I didn't stop doing freakish things." Kratos felt something stir within him. Not rage, though that was always present, but something he hadn't felt since Calliope. Since his daughter. "I am not death," he replied, his voice a rumbling bass that seemed to shake the small cupboard. "But I know him well." The boy sat up, rubbing his eyes beneath the glasses. "You look different. Are you a freak too?" "That's what they call me when I make things happen." Kratos studied the child more carefully. Beyond the physical neglect, he sensed a spirit unbroken. Despite whatever they had done to him, the boy's eyes held determination. And that magical energy, it swirled around him like a storm barely contained. "What is your name, boy?" "Harry Potter, sir." "Who has done this to you?" Kratos gestured to the cupboard, to the bruises. Harry shrugged as if the answer were obvious. "My aunt and uncle. I live here because my parents died in a car crash. I'm a burden, you see." The familiar rage stirred in Kratos' chest, but now it had focus. Someone had imprisoned this child, this powerful child, and broken his body but not his spirit. It reminded him too much of the gods and their casual cruelty. A thunderous crash from upstairs, followed by a high-pitched shriek. "Boy! Who are you talking to?" A man's voice bellowed. Heavy footsteps pounded down the stairs, dust shaking from the ceiling of the tiny cupboard. Harry flinched instinctively, making himself smaller on the mattress. Kratos stepped back into the hallway just as a massive man with a purple face and walrus mustache reached the bottom step. Behind him cowered a horse-faced woman and an overweight boy who appeared to be Harry's age but twice his size. "Who the bloody hell are you?" the man roared, though his courage visibly faltered as he took in Kratos's full appearance, the ashen skin, the red tattoos, the massive frame that seemed to fill the narrow hallway. "You keep the boy locked away," Kratos stated flatly. "Not a question. That's none of your business. This is breaking and entering. I'll call the police." Kratos moved with godlike speed, his hand closing around the fat man's throat and lifting him off the ground with zero effort. The woman screamed. The chubby boy ran back upstairs. "The boy has power," Kratos growled, his face inches from the purple-faced man who was now turning blue. "You fear it. You punish him for it." "Freakishness," the woman shrieked from the staircase. "Just like my wretched sister. We swore when we took him and we'd stamp it out." Kratos turned his golden gaze on her, and she fell silent under its weight. "Harry," Kratos called, not looking away from the choking man in his grip. "Collect whatever belongs to you. We're leaving." Harry appeared in the cupboard doorway, wide-eyed. "Leaving? With you? But I'm not allowed, they no longer decide what you are allowed." Kratos squeezed slightly, making Vernon's eyes bulge. "These people are not worthy guardians for one with your potential." Harry hesitated only briefly before ducking back into the cupboard. He emerged seconds later with pathetically few possessions, a broken toy soldier, a thin blanket, and a child's drawing of what might have been a family. Kratos dropped Vernon unceremoniously. The man collapsed, gasping and clutching his throat. "If you follow us," Kratos warned, "if you alert authorities, if you do anything but forget the boy existed, I will return. And next time, I will not be merciful." Vernon nodded frantically, too terrified to speak. The woman remained frozen on the stairs, tears streaming down her face. Harry looked up at Kratos with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. "Where are we going?" "Away from here. To a place where you can learn to control your power." Kratos placed a massive hand on Harry's shoulder, guiding him toward the door. "No one will lock you away again." As they stepped outside into the night, Harry stumbling to keep pace with Kratos's long strides, a soft popping sound came from behind a nearby hedge. Kratos whirled, pushing Harry behind him protectively. An elderly man in bizarre robes stood there, a long silver beard flowing down his chest. His eyes, behind half-moon spectacles, showed surprise at the sight of Kratos. "I must say," the old man said calmly, "when the wards collapsed, I expected many possibilities. You, however, were not among them." He looked past Kratos to where Harry peered around the warrior's leg. "Harry, my boy, are you all right?" Kratos felt the magical energy radiating from this newcomer. Powerful, but controlled. Aged, but dangerous. "Who are you, old man?" Kratos demanded. "Albus Dumbledore, headmaster of Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry." The old wizard's eyes twinkled despite the tension. "And you appear to be removing Harry from his family's protection." "I'm afraid I cannot allow that." Kratos laughed, a sound like stones grinding together. "You speak of protection. The boy was locked in a cage. Starved. Beaten. He reached back for his blades. Your protection is worthless." Dumbledore's expression darkened. "The blood wards protected him from far greater dangers. Lord Voldemort's followers still search for him. The boy is famous in our world, and a target." Harry tugged at Kratos's arm. "What's he talking about?" "I'm not famous." Dumbledore sighed. "You truly know nothing of your heritage? Of how your parents died?" He shot an accusatory look at the house behind them. "Petunia swore she would tell you when you were old enough." "They said my parents died in a car crash," Harry replied. "A car crash? A car crash kill Lily and James Potter?" Dumbledore's calm demeanor cracked briefly. He turned back to Kratos. Sir, whatever you may be, and I sense you are no ordinary man, Harry must return to his relatives. The protection his mother's sacrifice created depends on it. Kratos felt his rage building. Sacrifice? You speak of sacrifice to me, old man. The red tattoo on his body began to glow faintly. I have sacrificed everything. I have killed gods. I have torn down Olympus itself. And you think to command me? Something shifted in Dumbledore's posture. The grandfatherly facade receded, revealing the powerful wizard beneath. You are not of this world. No, Kratos confirmed. But I am in it now. And this boy will not return to that prison. Dumbledore drew a wooden stick, his wand, with surprising speed for one so old. Then I regret what must happen next. A beam of red light shot from the wand directly at Kratos. With reflexes honed in countless battles, Kratos deflected it with one of his blades, sending the spell crashing into a nearby tree, which immediately froze solid. Harry gasped beside him. Dumbledore's eyebrows rose in surprise. Most impressive. But Harry must be protected. I'll protect him, Kratos growled. He charged forward, far faster than Dumbledore anticipated. The old wizard barely managed to create a shield charm before Kratos's fist connected with it. The magical barrier shattered like glass, the force throwing Dumbledore back several feet. More popping sounds filled the air as additional wizards appeared, a stern-looking woman with her hair in a tight bun, a man with a wooden leg and a magical eye that spun wildly, and others, all with wands drawn. Albus, the woman cried. What's happening? The tracking charms. Her words died as she saw Kratos standing battle-ready, blades now fully drawn and glowing with ethereal fire. Stand down, Minerva, Dumbledore said, regaining his footing. Our visitor is formidable. The one with the spinning eye growled, Death Eater trick. Glamour charm. No, Alastair. Something far more unusual. Dumbledore kept his wand pointed at Kratos. Sir, you're surrounded by some of Britain's finest wizards. I ask again that you leave Harry with us. Harry, who had been watching the standoff with growing confusion, suddenly stepped forward. I don't want to go back, he said firmly. His small hands were balled into fists at his sides. They hate me there. They call me freak and make me sleep in a cupboard. Minerva gasped. Albus, what is he talking about? Kratos saw the opportunity in the wizard's confusion. He swept Harry up with one arm, securing him against his chest. The boy comes with me, he declared. Try to stop me, and none of you will leave alive. The threat hung in the air, and even Harry could feel the deadly promise in those words. The assembled wizards sensed it too. This was not an empty boast. Whatever this ash-white warrior was, he radiated power unlike anything they had encountered. Harry, Dumbledore said softly, trying a different approach. Your parents would want you safe. My parents are dead, Harry replied with surprising conviction for a child his age. And I wasn't safe in that cupboard. Kratos backed away slowly, keeping Harry secure with one arm while the other held a blade ready. The wizards maintained their circle, wands pointed, waiting for Dumbledore's command. The old wizard studied Kratos with piercing blue eyes, seeming to look through him, measuring his intent. Whatever he saw there made him hesitate. What will you do with him? Dumbledore asked quietly. Teach him. Train him. Help him master the power I sense within him. Kratos's voice was firm. No one will cage him again. More wizards were appearing at the edges of the street. Time was running short. Albus, the one called Minerva, whispered urgently. We can't let Harry go with this creature. Dumbledore raised a hand for silence, his eyes never leaving Kratos. You speak of training. You recognize the magic within him, then? I recognize power, Kratos replied. And I recognize a warrior's spirit in need of guidance. A faint smile touched Dumbledore's lips. Curious. Most curious. He lowered his wand slightly. Harry must return to the wizarding world when he turns 11. That is non-negotiable. He has a destiny here. Kratos scoffed. I care nothing for destiny. The fates no longer control me. Nevertheless, Dumbledore pressed, Harry belongs to our world as much as he belongs to yours now. When the time comes, a massive explosion of light and sound cut off his words as Kratos slammed one blade into the ground. When the blinding flash cleared, the street was empty where Kratos and Harry had stood. Find them, shouted the one called Alastor. They couldn't have gone far. But Dumbledore placed a restraining hand on his colleague's arm. No, Alastor. I think perhaps this was meant to happen. Albus, have you lost your mind? That creature has taken the boy who lived. Dumbledore looked thoughtful as he stared at the spot where Kratos had vanished. Yes. And curiously, I believe Harry may be safer for it. Miles away, deep in a forest that Harry didn't recognize, Kratos finally set him down on the ground. The boy's legs wobbled beneath him, both from the disorienting method of travel and from the night's events. How did you do that? Harry asked, eyes wide with wonder. Was that magic? No, Kratos replied, scanning their surroundings for threats. Divine ability. Different from your magic, but not entirely dissimilar. Harry dropped onto a fallen log, suddenly looking very small and vulnerable in the vastness of the forest. Are you a god, then? Like in the stories? Kratos's expression darkened. I was a god. Then I killed the gods who made me one. Now. He shrugged his massive shoulders. Now I simply am. Harry tried to process this, his young mind struggling with concepts beyond his years. And that old man. Dumbledore. He said I'm famous. That my parents didn't die in a crash. Kratos sat on the ground across from Harry, his golden eyes reflecting the moonlight filtering through the trees. That man had power. If he says you are known in his world, it is likely true. But why would I be famous? I'm nobody. Just Harry. No. Kratos's voice was firm. The power I sense in you, it is not ordinary. And that mark on your head bears the signature of death survived. Harry's hand unconsciously touched his lightning bolt scar. This? Aunt Petunia said I got it in the crash. She lied. Kratos's expression suggested he would like to return to Privet Drive and show Vernon and Petunia exactly what he thought of their treatment of Harry. That mark was made by powerful magic. Death magic. They fell silent for a moment, the forest around them alive with night sounds. Harry pulled his oversized shirt tighter around himself as a breeze picked up. Are you cold? Kratos asked. Harry nodded reluctantly, not wanting to appear weak before this imposing figure who had rescued him. Without a word, Kratos gathered wood and built a small fire with practiced efficiency. The warmth soon spread through their small clearing, and Harry edged closer to the flames. Why did you take me? He finally asked, the question that had been burning in his mind since they'd left Privet Drive. Kratos was silent for so long that Harry thought he might not answer. Then, I had a child once. A daughter. Calliope. His voice changed when he spoke her name, something softer entering it. She was taken from me. I could not protect her. Harry waited, sensing there was more. When I saw you in that cupboard, I saw someone else the gods had failed. Someone else punished for power they never asked for. Kratos met Harry's eyes across the fire. I will not fail you as I failed her. Harry swallowed hard, a lump forming in his throat. No one had ever spoken to him like this before, like he mattered. Like he was worth protecting. What happens now? He asked. Now we train. We prepare. If what the old man said is true, there are those who would harm you. Kratos placed another log on the fire. I will teach you to fight. To survive. And you will learn to control the magic within you. But how? I don't even know what I'm doing when it happens. Things just break or fly or change when I'm angry or scared. That is why you must learn discipline. Control. Kratos pointed to Harry's chest. Power without control is dangerous, to others and to yourself. I learned that lesson too late. Harry nodded, trying to look braver than he felt. Will it be hard? A rare, grim smile crossed Kratos's face. Yes. But you are stronger than you know, Harry Potter. I would not have taken you otherwise. That night, Harry slept better than he ever had at Privet Drive, wrapped in his thin blanket near the fire, with Kratos keeping watch. For the first time in his memory, he felt safe. The wizarding world erupted in chaos when news spread that Harry Potter had vanished. The Daily Prophet ran frantic headlines: boy who lived missing, mysterious creature abducts savior, Dumbledore questioned by ministry. In a secure room at the Ministry of Magic, Dumbledore faced the minister and a panel of concerned officials. You let him take the boy. Minister Fudge sputtered, his bowler hat crumpled in his hands from nervous fidgeting. After all the precautions, all the protection spells. I made a judgment call, Cornelius, Dumbledore replied calmly. The being who took Harry was unlike anything I've encountered. Not human, not any magical creature known to our kind. A demon, then, suggested Amelia Bones. No. Dumbledore stroked his beard thoughtfully. Something older. Something divine. Snickers ran through the room, quickly silenced by Dumbledore's serious expression. You cannot possibly believe, Fudge began. I believe, Dumbledore cut in, that we have always known there are magics beyond our understanding. The Department of Mysteries studies such things daily. Is it so impossible that other pantheons, other powers, might exist alongside our own? Silence fell over the room. The situation at the Dursley home was not what I had hoped, Dumbledore continued, a flicker of regret crossing his face. Based on what I witnessed, Harry may indeed be better served elsewhere for the time being. Better served with a creature that threatened to kill you all. Fudge exclaimed. He threatened, yes, but he did not attack until provoked. And he spoke of training Harry, teaching him control. Dumbledore's eyes took on a distant look. Perhaps this is part of a larger design. So we do nothing? Amelia Bones asked incredulously. On the contrary, Dumbledore replied. We search. We monitor for accidental magic. And we prepare for Harry's eventual return. He rose from his chair. The boy will need Hogwarts, and Hogwarts will need him. When the time comes, our paths will cross again. As the meeting dissolved into arguments and planning, Dumbledore slipped away. In his office at Hogwarts, he removed a small silver instrument from a shelf and activated it. A tiny light pulsed within, faint but steady. Still alive, then, Dumbledore murmured. And perhaps on a new path entirely. The first weeks with Kratos were the hardest of Harry's young life, and simultaneously the best. They moved constantly, never staying in one place more than a few days. Kratos taught him to make camp, to cover their tracks, to move silently through forests. The training was grueling for a boy who had spent years malnourished and confined. Again, Kratos commanded as Harry struggled to complete a set of exercises. Your body must become as disciplined as your mind. Harry, sweating and trembling with exhaustion, pushed himself up one more time. His arms shook violently, but he refused to collapse. Kratos nodded, the barest hint of approval. Good. Rest now. Harry flopped onto his back, staring up at the canopy of leaves above them. Did you train like this? When you were young? A shadow passed over Kratos's face. My training was different. Spartan training. Harsher than what I demand of you. Spartan. Like from Greece. Harry had picked up bits of history from school before Kratos had taken him. Yes. I was born in Sparta, trained as a warrior from childhood. Kratos stared into the distance. It made me strong. It also made me cruel. Harry rolled onto his side, watching Kratos curiously. But you're not cruel now. Not to me. No. Not to you. Kratos met Harry's gaze. I have walked a long path, boy. I have made mistakes. Terrible ones. I do not wish that path for you. These moments, these glimpses into Kratos's past, were rare and precious. Harry treasured them, collecting each fragment of his new guardian's history like the treasures he sometimes found in the forest. As days turned to weeks, Harry's body grew stronger. The constant movement, regular meals, Kratos proved surprisingly skilled at hunting and cooking, and rigorous training began to transform the scrawny, malnourished boy. His confidence grew alongside his strength. The first time Harry's magic manifested deliberately rather than accidentally became a turning point in their relationship. They were practicing a defensive stance, Kratos demonstrating how to block an incoming attack, when a branch snapped behind Harry. Startled, he spun around, hands raised instinctively, and a burst of energy shot from his palms, reducing a small tree to splinters. Both of them stood frozen in shock. I didn't mean. Harry stammered, staring at his hands in horror. Kratos approached slowly, examining the destroyed tree. You felt threatened and responded. He turned to Harry, his expression thoughtful rather than angry. This is good. Good. I could have hurt you. You responded to a threat. Your power answered your need. Kratos placed a heavy hand on Harry's shoulder. Now we must work on directing it. Controlling it. From that day forward, their training expanded. Physical exercises in the morning, magic practice in the afternoon. Kratos couldn't teach Harry spells, but he understood energy, focus, and intent from his own divine abilities. Clear your mind, he instructed as Harry sat cross-legged on the forest floor. Feel the power within you. It flows like blood through your veins. Harry closed his eyes, concentrating. Since the tree incident, he'd been more aware of his magic, a warm current just beneath his skin, pulsing with his heartbeat. Now direct it. Not with anger or fear, but with purpose. Harry extended his hand toward a pile of leaves they'd gathered. He pictured them rising, imagined the energy flowing from his core down his arm and out through his fingers. Nothing happened. I can't do it, he sighed, opening his eyes. You think too much, Kratos observed. Magic is not just in your head. It is in your blood, your bones. Your entire being. Harry tried again, this time focusing on the feeling rather than the thought. The warm current stirred, responding to his call. Slowly, trembling slightly, the leaves began to rise. Yes, Kratos rumbled approvingly. Control it. Harry's face scrunched in concentration as he moved the leaves in a circle, then stacked them, then sent them swirling in a miniature tornado. When he finally released the magic, letting the leaves settle, he was breathing hard but grinning with triumph. Did you see that? I did it. You did, Kratos confirmed, and there was unmistakable pride in his voice. The first step of many. That night, as they sat by their campfire eating rabbit that Kratos had caught and prepared, Harry felt a contentment he'd never known before. Despite the hard ground beneath him, despite the uncertainty of their future, despite the strange circumstances that had brought them together, he felt, for the first time, that he belonged. Kratos, he asked hesitantly. What did that Dumbledore man mean when he said I have to go back to their world when I'm 11? Kratos poked at the fire with a stick. The wizards have a school. He wants you to attend it. Do I have to go? That is for you to decide when the time comes. Kratos studied Harry across the flames. Knowledge is power, boy. Even knowledge from those you do not fully trust can strengthen you. Harry nodded thoughtfully. And what about what he said about my parents? About me being famous? We will learn more as we go. There are others like you, magic users, in towns and cities. Eventually, we will seek them out. Learn what they know. The idea both excited and terrified Harry. More people like him. A whole world he knew nothing about. But not yet, Kratos added, seeing Harry's expression. First, you must be strong enough to face whatever waits in that world. 3 months after leaving Privet Drive, they had their first serious encounter with the magical world. They had ventured close to a small town to obtain supplies. Kratos, with his intimidating appearance, usually stayed hidden while Harry went into shops with money they'd acquired through various means, some more legitimate than others. Harry was returning from a successful supply run when he noticed a strange man watching him. Unlike the Muggles who populated the town, this man wore robes poorly disguised as normal clothing, a raincoat that dragged on the ground and a top hat despite the sunny day. Heart racing, Harry ducked into an alley, clutching his shopping bag. The man followed, moving with purpose. "Harry Potter?" The stranger called softly. "It is you, isn't it? Everyone's been looking for you." Harry backed away, remembering Kratos's instructions, avoid confrontation when possible. Seek high ground. Use terrain to your advantage. "Stay away from me," Harry warned, his free hand ready to call on his magic if needed. "I'm not here to hurt you, lad." The wizard held up empty hands. "Name's Daedalus Diggle. I just want to make sure you're safe." The whole wizarding world's been in an uproar. Harry continued backing up, looking for an escape route. "I am safe. Safer than I ever was with the Dursleys. But the creature that took you, he didn't take me," Harry snapped, anger flaring. "He rescued me. And he's not a creature." The wizard looked taken aback. "But the report said," "I don't care what they said. He's my guardian now." Daedalus shifted nervously, glancing around the alley. "Look, just come with me to the ministry. They can sort this all out, make proper arrangements, no." Harry's voice was firm, surprising even himself with its authority. "I'm not going anywhere." The wizard's hand slipped inside his coat, presumably reaching for his wand. "I'm sorry, Harry, but I have orders to bring you in if found." He never finished his sentence. A massive hand closed around his throat from behind, lifting him clean off the ground. Kratos had appeared silently, as was his way, and now held the struggling wizard aloft with one hand. "Kratos, wait!" Harry called. "He hasn't attacked me yet." Kratos growled but didn't crush the man's windpipe as he might have done. "He threatened to take you. I think he's one of them. The wizards. Like Dumbledore." The wizard's eyes bulged as he stared at Kratos's ash-white skin and glowing tattoo up close. His feet kicked uselessly in the air. "Can you put him down so we can talk to him?" Harry suggested. "He might know things about my parents." After a moment's consideration, Kratos lowered the wizard but maintained a grip on his robes. "Speak quickly, wizard. Why do you hunt the boy?" Gasping for air, Daedalus straightened his now crumpled hat. "And not hunting. Searching. For his protection. You know whose followers are still out there, who?" Harry interrupted. Daedalus looked shocked. "You know who. He who must not be named. The dark wizard who killed your parents and gave you that scar." Harry's hand went to his forehead. "A dark wizard killed my parents? Not a car crash." "Car crash?" Daedalus looked appalled. "Is that what those muggles told you? Lily and James Potter were murdered by the most terrible dark wizard of our time. And you, Harry, you somehow survived the killing curse. That's why everyone calls you the boy who lived." Harry felt like the ground had dropped away beneath his feet. He looked up at Kratos, who watched the wizard with narrowed, suspicious eyes. "Why would this dark wizard want to kill a baby?" Kratos demanded. Daedalus shook his head. There was a prophecy, but I don't know the details. Only that you know who came to Godric's Hollow that night to kill the Potters. He succeeded with James and Lily, but when he tried to kill Harry, he gestured to the lightning scar. The curse rebounded. You know who was destroyed. Harry's mind reeled with questions. What was his name? This dark wizard? Daedalus shuddered. We don't say it. Bad luck. Kratos's grip tightened on the wizard's robes. Tell the boy his enemy's name. V. Voldemort, Daedalus whispered, looking around as if saying it might summon the wizard in question. But please, don't make me say it again. Voldemort, Harry repeated, feeling the strange name on his tongue. And he's gone. Dead? Daedalus shifted uncomfortably. That's what most believe. Dumbledore has his doubts. Kratos and Harry exchanged a look. If this Voldemort had tried to kill Harry once, he might try again, especially if he wasn't truly dead. Where can we learn more about this? Harry asked. About my parents, about Voldemort, about why he tried to kill me? Diagon Alley in London has bookshops with histories, Daedalus replied, seeming relieved the conversation had turned away from saying Voldemort's name. Flourish and Blots would have what you need. But you can't just walk in there. You'd cause a riot. Harry Potter, returned from the dead, walking down Diagon Alley, we will find a way, Kratos stated, finally releasing the wizard. Now go. Tell your ministry we do not wish to be followed. Daedalus straightened his robes, looking between the imposing figure of Kratos and the increasingly confident stance of young Harry. They won't stop looking, you know, he said. You're too important to our world, Harry. I don't care about being important, Harry replied honestly. I just want to know the truth. About everything. The wizard nodded slowly. I understand. But, are you truly safe with him? He glanced nervously at Kratos. Harry stood straighter, moving to Kratos's side. I've never been safer. After Daedalus departed, constantly looking over his shoulder as if expecting Kratos to change his mind and attack, they quickly left the town, traveling deep into another forest before making camp. Harry was quiet that evening, processing everything he'd learned. Kratos gave him space, focusing on preparing their meal and securing the perimeter of their camp. Finally, as they ate, Harry broke his silence. They lied to me. About everything. My parents, my scar, who I am. Men often fear what they don't understand, Kratos replied. And they hate what they fear. But why did this Voldemort want to kill me as a baby? What prophecy was Diggle talking about? Prophecies, Kratos spat the word. Tools the gods used to control mortals. To force their destinies. Harry looked up, surprised by the vehemence in Kratos's voice. You don't believe in destiny? I believed once. I was bound by fate, used by gods, manipulated by prophecies. Kratos's golden eyes reflected the firelight. No more. I forged my own path. Defied the fates themselves. So I don't have to follow this prophecy. Whatever it is. No. Kratos's voice was firm. You will choose your own path, boy. That is why I train you. So you can face whatever comes on your terms, not theirs. Harry nodded, feeling a weight lift from his shoulders. I want to learn more. About my parents, about this Voldemort. About why everyone thinks I'm so important. Knowledge is a weapon, sharper than any blade. We will find this Diagon Alley. But we must be cautious. From what the wizard said, you would be recognized. We'll figure something out, Harry said with newfound determination. We always do. 2 more months passed before they finally ventured to London. In that time, Harry's training intensified. His magical control grew steadily, and his physical condition improved dramatically. No longer the scrawny, underfed boy from the cupboard, Harry moved with growing confidence and strength. Kratos had also begun teaching him strategy and tactics, often using sticks to draw battle formations in the dirt. The mind is as important as the body in combat, he explained. You must see not just what is before you, but what could be. Anticipate. Harry absorbed these lessons eagerly. Under Kratos' guidance, he was becoming something unique, neither purely wizard nor warrior, but a blend of both. His magic responded differently now, more controlled but also more intuitive. He could channel it through his entire body, enhancing his physical abilities in ways that seemed to surprise even Kratos. London overwhelmed Harry at first. After months in forests and small villages, the noise and crowds of the city made him tense and hyper-aware. Kratos, too, seemed uncomfortable with the crush of humanity around them. Stay close, Kratos growled as they navigated the busy streets. Too many people. Too many places for enemies to hide. They had prepared carefully for this mission. Harry wore a cap pulled low over his scar, and they'd cut his hair shorter to make him less recognizable. Kratos wore a hooded cloak that concealed much of his distinctive appearance, though nothing could completely hide his imposing presence or ashen skin. Finding the leaky cauldron proved challenging, but Kratos' divine senses eventually detected the magical energy emanating from what appeared to ordinary humans as a rundown shop front. There, he pointed. Magic conceals the entrance. They watched from across the street as people in odd clothing occasionally emerged from or disappeared into the building that most pedestrians walked past without a glance. How do we get in without being recognized? Harry wondered. Kratos considered their options. We wait. Watch for an opportunity. That opportunity came near sunset, when a large family with several children entered the leaky cauldron. In the confusion of their arrival, Harry and Kratos slipped in behind them, keeping to the shadows at the edge of the crowded pub. The place was dimly lit, filled with witches and wizards in robes drinking from oddly shaped glasses and eating food that sometimes moved on the plate. Despite their cautious entrance, several heads turned toward them, not in recognition, but in wary assessment of Kratos' unusual appearance. What do you suppose he is? Harry heard one witch whisper to her companion. Part giant. Part troll. Something foreign, I expect, replied the other. Best not to stare. They observed as the large family they'd followed was greeted by the barkeeper and led through a back door. When no one was looking their way, Kratos motioned for Harry to follow, and they quickly moved across the room and through the same door. They emerged into a small courtyard facing a brick wall. The family was just ahead, and they watched as one of the adults tapped a specific pattern on the bricks with a wand. The wall rearranged itself, bricks sliding apart to reveal an archway opening onto a bustling, colorful street lined with the strangest shops Harry had ever seen. Diagon Alley, Harry whispered in awe. They followed at a distance, entering the magical shopping district. Harry's eyes darted everywhere, trying to take in the impossible sights, owls swooping between buildings, shops selling cauldrons and broomsticks, witches and wizards in vibrant robes haggling over the price of dragon liver. Kratos remained vigilant, one hand near his concealed weapons as they moved through the crowd. Where is this bookshop the wizard mentioned? Harry scanned the storefronts until he spotted a sign, Flourish and Blots, booksellers. Inside, towering shelves reached to the ceiling, crammed with books of every size and color. Some volumes were chained shut, others emitted strange sounds or glowed faintly. What should we look for? Harry asked, keeping his voice low. Recent history, Kratos replied. The war this Voldemort waged. Your parents' role in it. They split up, Kratos taking one side of the shop while Harry took the other. Despite his intimidating appearance, Kratos moved with surprising stealth between the shelves, examining titles with intense focus. Harry found a section labeled Modern Magical History, and began scanning the spines. His finger stopped on a volume titled The Rise and Fall of the Dark Arts. Pulling it carefully from the shelf, he opened it to the index and quickly found what he was looking for, Potter, Harry, the boy who lived. His hands trembled slightly as he turned to the indicated page. There, he found the story of that Halloween night in 1981. The attack on Godric's Hollow. The deaths of James and Lily Potter. The mysterious survival of their infant son and the equally mysterious disappearance of Lord Voldemort. As he read, a lump formed in his throat. For the first time, he was seeing his parents' names in print, learning about their courage, their defiance of Voldemort, their ultimate sacrifice. They resisted him, he whispered to himself. 3 times before that night. He was so absorbed in the book that he didn't notice the witch approaching until she gasped loudly. "It can't be," she exclaimed, staring at Harry's forehead where his cap had slipped back, revealing the edge of his scar. "Harry Potter." Harry froze as heads began to turn throughout the shop. Whispers spread like wildfire, "Harry Potter. Here. The boy who lived. Someone get the prophet." Before the situation could escalate, Kratos appeared at Harry's side, a stack of books under one arm. "Time to go," he growled, pulling Harry's cap back down. But it was too late. A crowd was forming, people pushing forward to get a glimpse of the famous boy who had vanished months ago. "It is him," someone shouted. "And look at that creature with him. Just like the prophet described." Kratos's expression darkened dangerously. Harry felt the change in him, the restraint slipping, the rage building. "Kratos," Harry said urgently, "we need to leave. Now." With a swift movement, Kratos scooped Harry up and placed him on his shoulders, high above the crowd. Then, books still clutched under one arm, he charged toward the exit, scattering witches and wizards who were too shocked to draw their wands. They burst out of flourish and blots and sprinted down Diagon Alley, causing a commotion as they went. Behind them, shouts rang out. Ahead, a group of official-looking wizards in uniform appeared, blocking their path. "Halt," one called, raising his wand. "By order of the ministry." Kratos didn't slow. Instead, he leaped with inhuman strength, clearing the group entirely and landing on the other side. The wizard spun, astonished, as Kratos continued running with Harry securely on his shoulders. They reached the brick wall, now closed, that separated Diagon Alley from the leaky cauldron. "The pattern," Harry called down. "I remember it." But before he could explain, Kratos simply crashed through the wall, his godly strength reducing the magical barrier to rubble. They tore through the leaky cauldron amid screams and upturned tables, and seconds later were back on the streets of London, running at a pace no human could match. Only when they had put considerable distance between themselves and the magical district did Kratos slow to a walk, setting Harry down beside him. Despite the chaos of their escape, he had somehow maintained his grip on the stack of books. "That could have gone better," Harry panted, adjusting his cap. Kratos grunted in agreement. "But we have what we came for." He handed the books to Harry. Knowledge. Harry examined the titles: The Rise and Fall of the Dark Arts, Modern Magical History, Great Wizarding Events of the 20th Century, and The Sacred 28, Pure-Blood Families and Their Histories. "You grabbed these? Even with everything happening?" "Information is worth the risk," Kratos replied. "Now we must leave London. They will be searching." As they made their way out of the city, Harry clutched the books to his chest. Inside these pages were answers, about his parents, about Voldemort, about the world that claimed him as their savior. For the first time, he felt a connection to his past. And with Kratos beside him, he was no longer afraid of what that past might reveal. In the weeks that followed, Harry devoured the books they'd taken from Flourish and Blots. He read them by firelight, questioning Kratos about concepts he didn't understand, piecing together the history of a world he was apparently part of. The story that emerged both fascinated and troubled him. Lord Voldemort had risen to power through terror and magical supremacy, gathering followers called Death Eaters who shared his belief that pure-blooded wizards should rule over both half-bloods and muggles. The wizarding world had nearly fallen to his control when, inexplicably, he had targeted the Potters and met his downfall trying to kill their infant son. But why me? Harry asked Kratos one evening as they sat by their campfire. Why did he come after my parents specifically? There must have been other people fighting against him. The wizard in town mentioned a prophecy, Kratos reminded him. These books do not speak of it. Harry shook his head. They just say Voldemort believed I was a threat to him. That something about me made him afraid. Kratos considered this. Fear can drive even the most powerful to irrational actions. Do you think he's really gone? The books aren't sure. Some think he died, others think he's just waiting, regaining strength. In my experience, Kratos said grimly, those who seek power at all costs are not easily destroyed. They find ways to cling to existence. The possibility that Voldemort might return someday gave their training new urgency. Harry pushed himself harder, determined to be ready if that day came. One morning, as they practiced hand-to-hand combat in a mountain clearing, Kratos noticed something unusual. As Harry moved through the forms he'd been taught, a faint glow surrounded his hands, not unlike the ethereal fire that sometimes engulfed Kratos's blades. Stop, Kratos commanded. Do you feel it? The magic flowing through you? Harry paused, breathing hard from exertion. He looked down at his hands and saw the subtle aura surrounding them. I didn't realize I was doing that. You are combining physical training with magical energy. Channeling both simultaneously. Kratos looked intrigued, possibly even impressed. This is not common for wizards. I don't know, Harry admitted. The books mostly talk about using wands to focus magic. Try to maintain it. Control it. Direct it through your movements. Harry took a fighting stance and concentrated on the feeling of magic coursing through his body. As he moved through a series of punches and kicks Kratos had taught him, the glow intensified, extending beyond his hands to envelop his arms and legs. When he struck a nearby tree to test his power, the bark splintered in a way it never had before, even with his improved strength. Fascinating, Kratos murmured. You adapt the magic to enhance your physical abilities. Is that how your powers work? Harry asked, examining his glowing hands with wonder. Similar, but different. My abilities come from divine essence, not mortal magic. But the principle. Kratos nodded thoughtfully. We can work with this. Develop it. That discovery marked another evolution in Harry's training. He learned to channel his magic not just externally, moving objects or creating effects outside himself, but internally, enhancing his strength, speed, and reflexes beyond normal human capability. By the time winter arrived, bringing snow to their mountain refuge, Harry had changed dramatically from the boy in the cupboard. Physically, he'd grown several inches and developed lean muscle. His movements had taken on a graceful efficiency that belied his young age. Most striking was the confidence in his green eyes, a steady, unwavering gaze that suggested wisdom beyond his years. Magically, his progress was equally impressive. Without a wand or formal spells, he had developed an intuitive relationship with his power, calling it forth with thought and intent rather than incantations. It was a raw, primal form of magic unlike the structured techniques described in the wizarding books, but undeniably effective. As snow fell around their sheltered cave, Harry practiced forming shields of magical energy to block Kratos' attacks. The god of war hurled stones and branches, testing the boundaries of Harry's defensive abilities. Stronger, Kratos commanded as a particularly large stone shattered Harry's shield. Focus your will. Harry gritted his teeth, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cold air. He reformed the shield, this time picturing it as solid as the mountain beneath their feet. The next stone Kratos threw bounced off harmlessly. Better, Kratos nodded. Now hold it while moving. They continued like this for hours, Harry maintaining his shield while dodging, running, and even attacking. By the time they finished, the clearing was littered with broken stones and branches, and Harry was exhausted but triumphant. That night, as they warmed themselves by the fire in their cave, Harry broached a subject he'd been considering for weeks. Kratos, what will happen when I turn 11? Dumbledore said I need to return to the wizarding world then. That decision is yours to make when the time comes. But what do you think I should do? If I go to Hogwarts, I'll learn their kind of magic. But I'd have to leave you. Kratos stared into the flames. The old man spoke of your destiny in their world. I have no love for destiny, but knowledge. He looked at Harry directly. Knowledge from many sources will make you stronger. You think I should go? I think you should be prepared for all paths. Kratos picked up a stick and drew in the dirt floor of the cave. The wizards have knowledge I cannot give you. Understanding their magic, their ways, could be valuable. Harry nodded slowly. And what about you? What will you do if I go to this school? I will continue to train you when you are not there. Their school has breaks, does it not? According to the books, yes. Holidays and summers. Then we will use that time. And. Kratos seemed to choose his next words carefully. I will watch over you, even at this Hogwarts. From a distance, if necessary. The idea of Kratos lurking around Hogwarts almost made Harry smile. I don't think they'd let you just walk in. They would not see me unless I wished it. Harry believed him. He had witnessed Kratos' ability to move with impossible stealth for someone of his size. We have time yet, Kratos added. Nearly 2 years before this decision must be made. Focus on your training now. But even as they continued their nomadic lifestyle, training in remote locations across Britain and occasionally Europe, signs of the wizarding world's interest in Harry persisted. Twice more they encountered wizards clearly searching for them, and once they narrowly avoided a group that Kratos identified as government officials based on their organized movement patterns. They are persistent, Kratos observed after they slipped away from a patrol in the Scottish Highlands. Your fame makes you valuable to them. I didn't ask to be famous, Harry grumbled. I didn't ask for any of this. Few ask for the destiny thrust upon them, Kratos replied with rare sympathy. But how you respond to it, that choice is yours alone. On Harry's 9th birthday, Kratos presented him with a gift, a pair of bracers he had crafted himself from leather and metal. They fit snugly around Harry's forearms, decorated with symbols that combined Greek patterns with runes Kratos had copied from the magic books. To focus your power, Kratos explained as Harry admired them. And to protect your arms in battle. Harry slipped them on, feeling an immediate connection as the bracers warmed against his skin. When he channeled his magic through them, the runes glowed faintly, and he found his control sharper, more precise. They're perfect, he said, genuinely moved by the gift. Thank you. Kratos nodded, seemingly pleased with Harry's reaction though his expression remained stoic. They will grow with you. I have made them adjustable. That same day, as they made camp in a forest clearing, an owl arrived bearing a letter. It swooped down directly to Harry, holding out its leg where a small scroll was attached. Harry looked to Kratos, who tensed but nodded for him to take it. Carefully untying the message, Harry unrolled the parchment and read aloud, Harry, happy 9th birthday. I hope this finds you well. The wizarding world still searches, but I have diverted their attention when possible, believing you are where you need to be for now. When you are ready to learn more about your heritage and your parents' sacrifice, know that Hogwarts will welcome you. Until then, may your new guardian continue to keep you safe. Albus Dumbledore. A small package accompanied the letter, containing a moving photograph of a young couple holding a baby. The man had Harry's untidy black hair, and the woman had his exact shade of green eyes. My parents, Harry whispered, touching the photo reverently. Kratos moved closer to examine the magical photograph. The old man extends an olive branch. Can we trust him? Harry asked. Trust is earned, not given, Kratos replied. But his actions suggest he respects our choice to remain hidden. For now. Harry nodded, still staring at the photograph. His parents waved up at him, smiling, unaware of their fate. For the first time, he could see his father's features that he'd inherited, his mother's eyes looking back at him from her face. "I wish I could remember them," he said softly. Kratos placed a heavy hand on Harry's shoulder. "They live on in you. In your strength. In your determination. Honor them with your actions, not just your memories." Harry carefully tucked the photograph into his pack, alongside the books that had taught him about his past. Then he stood tall, adjusted his bracers, and turned to Kratos. "Let's train. I want to be stronger." Kratos nodded, a glint of approval in his golden eyes. "Then we begin." In Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, Albus Dumbledore stood by the window of his office, stroking his phoenix fox as he gazed out at the grounds. Behind him, several silver instruments whirred and puffed, monitoring distant magics. "You really think it's for the best, Albus?" Professor McGonagall asked, seated in a chair by his desk. "Letting Harry Potter remain with that being?" "I do, Minerva." Dumbledore turned from the window. "My tracking charms show that Harry is not only alive but thriving. His magical signature grows stronger each month, developing in ways I've never seen before." "But what about his education? His preparation for what's to come?" "Ah, that's where my gamble lies." Dumbledore smiled faintly. "I believe our mysterious friend is providing Harry with training we could never offer, not just in magic, but in survival, in strength of body and will. You can't possibly believe the prophecy would account for this intervention." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. "Prophecies are curious things, Minerva. They tell us destinations but not journeys. Power the Dark Lord knows not could take many forms." He moved to one of his silver instruments, adjusting it slightly. "The Ministry still searches, of course. Cornelius can't bear the political embarrassment of losing the boy who lived. But they won't find him unless our ash-skinned friend allows it. And when it's time for Harry to attend Hogwarts, I've extended the invitation. When Harry turns 11, I believe he'll come to us, not as the frightened, unprepared boy he might have been, but as something entirely new." Dumbledore's expression grew serious. "And that, I think, may change everything." As Harry's 10th year progressed, their encounters with the wizarding world became more frequent, as if the magical community sensed his approaching Hogwarts age. They adapted by venturing further afield, spending time in remote parts of France and even Greece, where Kratos showed Harry the ruins of his former world. Standing among crumbling columns of an ancient temple, Kratos recounted more of his past than he ever had before: his service to Ares, the tragic death of his family by his own hand, his revenge against the gods of Olympus. "I was consumed by rage," he told Harry as they sat beneath the Mediterranean sun. "It drove me to power but also to madness. I destroyed everything, caring only for vengeance." Harry listened, understanding now why Kratos placed such emphasis on controlling emotions, on mastering oneself before mastering power. "Is that why you're teaching me differently? So I don't make the same mistakes?" Kratos nodded. "Rage can be useful in battle, but it must be your servant, not your master. The same is true of power." He looked at Harry with unusual intensity. "You have potential for greatness, boy. But greatness can lead to terrible places if not tempered with wisdom." These philosophical lessons became as important as the physical and magical training. Kratos taught Harry to question everything, to make decisions based on his own judgment rather than others' expectations. "The wizards will try to shape you," he warned. "They will have plans for you, roles they expect you to fill. Remember who you are beneath their titles and prophecies." As Harry's 11th birthday approached, they returned to Britain. Both sensed the coming change, the decision that would need to be made. 1 week before Harry turned 11, they made camp on a small island off the Scottish coast. The isolation gave them a temporary reprieve from the increasingly determined wizard patrols that seemed to be scouring the country for them. "They know your Hogwarts letter will be coming soon," Kratos observed as they fished from the rocky shore. "They hope to find you before it arrives." Harry cast his line into the churning sea. "Do you think the letter will find me?" The book said Hogwarts letters always reach their targets. Magic has ways of finding its own, Kratos replied. I expect we will know soon enough. That night, as they cooked their catch over a fire sheltered from the wind by rock formations, Harry contemplated the future. If I go to Hogwarts, he said, I'll learn to use a wand, cast proper spells. But I don't want to lose what you've taught me. You won't, Kratos assured him. What you have learned has become part of you, as much as the magic in your blood. The wizards may teach you their ways, but they cannot unmake what you have become. Harry nodded, taking comfort in that. Over the past 3 years, he had transformed from a neglected, powerless child into something unique, not quite wizard, not quite warrior, but a blend of both with his own distinct strength. I think I should go, he finally said. At least to start. To learn what they can teach me. To understand that part of myself. Kratos nodded, having expected this decision. A wise choice. Knowledge is never wasted. But I'll come back during holidays, Harry added quickly. We'll continue training. Yes. Your education will not end simply because you enter their school. The storm that battered the island that night seemed an appropriate backdrop for the turning point in their journey together. Wind howled across the rocks, and waves crashed against the shore, yet inside their shelter, beside the warm fire, Harry felt an unusual sense of peace. He had made his choice. Whatever came next, he would face it with everything Kratos had taught him. On the morning of Harry's 11th birthday, they woke to find an owl waiting patiently outside their shelter, a letter tied to its leg. The envelope was addressed in emerald green ink, Mr. H. Potter, the stone shelter, Eastern Shore, Unplottable Island, North Sea. They found you, Kratos observed, sounding almost impressed. Harry took the envelope with steady hands and broke the wax seal bearing the Hogwarts crest. Inside was his invitation to attend the wizarding school, along with a list of required supplies. It's really happening, Harry murmured, scanning the letter. I'm supposed to respond by owl. Kratos handed him a small piece of parchment they kept for such occasions, and Harry penned a brief response, I will attend Hogwarts this September. However, I have conditions that I would like to discuss with Headmaster Dumbledore before term begins. I suggest a meeting at a neutral location. Harry Potter. After the owl departed with his reply, Harry turned to Kratos. What conditions should we ask for? Freedom to leave the grounds when necessary. Permission to continue your physical training. And Kratos considered carefully. No interference with the guardian relationship we have established. Harry nodded. Do you think Dumbledore will agree? The old man wants you at his school. He will compromise. The response came swiftly. By afternoon, another owl arrived bearing Dumbledore's reply, Dear Harry, I am delighted you have chosen to attend Hogwarts. I am certainly open to discussing your conditions. I suggest we meet at the Leaky Cauldron in London in 3 days' time. I will arrange a private room where we can speak freely. Your guardian is welcome to attend, of course. Sincerely, Albus Dumbledore, Headmaster. He agrees too easily, Kratos noted with suspicion after reading the letter. He may have other motives. Probably, Harry agreed. But we need to start somewhere. They spent the next 3 days preparing. Harry practiced controlling his magical aura, making it less detectable. Kratos drilled him on negotiation tactics, on reading opponents, on standing firm when pressured. Show strength, but not aggression, Kratos advised. The old man respects power but responds to reason. When the day came, they traveled to London by more conventional means than their last visit, taking a ferry and then a train to avoid magical detection. Harry wore normal Muggle clothing, jeans and a t-shirt that actually fit him, purchased in a coastal town. Kratos again wore a hooded cloak, though it did little to diminish his imposing presence. The Leaky Cauldron was busy when they entered, but a hush fell over the patrons as they recognized the pair from descriptions in the Daily Prophet. The barkeeper, Tom, quickly approached them. Mr. Potter, he said quietly, the headmaster is waiting upstairs. Room 3. Harry nodded his thanks, and they proceeded up the creaking staircase, aware of the many eyes following them. Kratos kept one hand near his concealed blades, scanning constantly for threats. Room 3 was a small private dining room with a table, chairs, and a window overlooking Diagon Alley. Albus Dumbledore stood as they entered, his bright blue eyes taking in the sight of them with undisguised interest. "Harry," he said warmly. "How wonderful to see you again. You've grown considerably since our brief encounter at Privet Drive." Harry stepped forward, Kratos a protective presence behind him. "Headmaster Dumbledore. Thank you for meeting with us." Dumbledore turned his gaze to Kratos. "And you, sir? I believe we were never properly introduced amidst the excitement of our first meeting." Kratos, the god of war, replied simply. "Just Kratos." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. "No titles. No lineage. None that matter in this realm." Dumbledore gestured to the table. "Please, sit. I've ordered tea, though I can request something stronger if you prefer." They sat, Kratos choosing a chair that gave him full view of the door and window. Harry took the seat beside him, back straight, eyes steady as he faced Dumbledore across the table. "You mentioned conditions, Harry," Dumbledore began after pouring tea. "I'm most interested to hear them." Harry glanced at Kratos, who gave a slight nod of encouragement. "First," Harry said, his voice steady and clear, "I will need freedom to leave school grounds for training with Kratos. Weekends, perhaps." Dumbledore frowned slightly. "Hogwarts has rules about students leaving the grounds, for safety reasons." "My safety has been well managed for the past 3 years," Harry countered. "Better than it ever was under your arrangements." A flash of regret crossed Dumbledore's face. "A fair point. I underestimated the Dursleys' resentment, to my eternal shame." He sipped his tea thoughtfully. "I could allow supervised weekend visits, provided your guardian can transport you safely." Harry nodded. "Second, I want to continue my physical training while at school. I'll need access to suitable spaces." "The grounds are extensive," Dumbledore replied. "I see no issue with physical exercise. Many of our Quidditch players maintain training regimens." "Third," Harry continued, "and most importantly, Kratos remains my guardian. No interference from the Ministry or anyone else." This made Dumbledore pause. "That may be more complicated. Legally speaking, the Dursleys remain your guardians in the Muggle world, while the Ministry has certain responsibilities toward you in the Wizarding world." Kratos leaned forward slightly. "The Dursleys relinquished their claim when they imprisoned the boy in a cupboard. As for your Ministry..." His golden eyes narrowed. "They are welcome to try to separate us." The threat hung in the air. Dumbledore regarded Kratos thoughtfully, then turned back to Harry. "I cannot promise the Ministry won't try to assert authority over your guardianship, Harry. But I can promise my own support for arrangements that keep you safe and well-trained." He smiled slightly. "And I have some influence with the Minister." Harry considered this. "I suppose that's the best we can ask for now." "Indeed. Now, may I ask a few questions of my own?" When Harry nodded, Dumbledore continued, "Your magical education these past years, how has it progressed without formal instruction?" Harry exchanged another glance with Kratos before answering. "Differently than you might expect. I don't use a wand, and I don't know specific spells, but I can control my magic. Direct it. Use it to enhance my physical abilities." Dumbledore's eyebrows rose. "Fascinating. Wandless magic is extremely rare, especially in one so young." He looked at Kratos. "Your influence, I presume?" "I showed him how to access his power through will and focus," Kratos replied. "The boy has natural talent." "I'd be most interested to see a demonstration," Dumbledore said, eyes bright with curiosity. Harry hesitated, then nodded. He pushed back from the table and stood in an open space in the room. Closing his eyes briefly, he centered himself as Kratos had taught him, then opened them and extended his hands. The magical aura manifested around him, a shimmering energy that outlined his form. With controlled movements, he directed the energy to lift a teacup from the table, spin it in midair, then return it gently to its saucer. Then, shifting focus, he channeled the energy through his body, enhancing his physical form. He executed a perfect backflip from a standing position, landing silently on the balls of his feet. Dumbledore watched with undisguised amazement. Extraordinary. Truly extraordinary. You've developed abilities most adult wizards never achieve. Harry allowed the aura to fade, returning to his seat. Kratos taught me that magic is part of me, not separate. Not just a tool to use, but an extension of my will. A profound insight, Dumbledore nodded. Though at Hogwarts, you will need to learn wand-based magic as well. The focus and precision it allows are valuable in different ways. I'm willing to learn, Harry assured him. That's why I'm coming. Excellent. Dumbledore's expression grew more serious. And what has Kratos taught you about Lord Voldemort? The name didn't make Harry flinch as it did most wizards. That he was powerful, dangerous, and obsessed with magical supremacy. That he killed my parents and tried to kill me because of a prophecy. That he might not be truly gone. Dumbledore looked surprised. You're well informed. Knowledge is a weapon, Harry replied, echoing Kratos' teachings. We've read everything we could find about Voldemort and the war. And the prophecy? What do you know of that? Only that it exists. The books don't give details. Dumbledore nodded slowly. It's not common knowledge. Perhaps, in time, we can discuss it further. He turned to Kratos. You've prepared him well. Better than I might have, in some ways. The boy has potential, Kratos stated. He will need all his strength for what is to come. Indeed. Dumbledore regarded them both with new respect. Well, I believe we have an understanding. Harry will attend Hogwarts under the conditions discussed. I'll make the necessary arrangements with the staff. He pulled a small golden key from his pocket and slid it across the table to Harry. This is the key to your vault at Gringotts Bank in Diagon Alley. Your parents left you well provided for. It should cover your school supplies and anything else you might need. Harry took the key, turning it over in his hands. Another connection to his parents, another piece of his heritage. Thank you, he said simply. As they prepared to leave, Dumbledore had one final question. Harry, I'm curious, after your years with Kratos, how do you see yourself now? Not just as a wizard, but as, what? Harry stood tall beside his guardian, the warrior god who had rescued him from a cupboard and shown him what he could become. I'm becoming what I was always meant to be, he answered with quiet confidence. The god of magic and war. Something like satisfaction flickered in Dumbledore's eyes. Then Hogwarts awaits its newest deity with great anticipation. As they left the leaky cauldron and stepped back onto the streets of London, Harry felt the weight of the decision he had made. In just over a month, he would enter a world his parents had been part of, learn magic as they had, perhaps even sit in the same classrooms. But he would enter that world changed, stronger, more confident, and with the teachings of Kratos embedded in his very being. Are you ready for what comes next? Kratos asked as they walked away from the magical district. Harry adjusted the bracers beneath his sleeves, feeling their reassuring presence against his skin. Yes, he replied without hesitation. I'm ready. Chapter 2, Forged and Training. The small boy huddled against a tree, shivering as rain lashed through the canopy. 3 days had passed since the ash-skinned warrior had torn him from the only home he'd known. 3 days of walking, hiding, and sleeping under stars instead of stairs. I'm cold, Harry whispered, teeth chattering. Kratos crouched beside him, massive frame blocking some of the rain. Being cold teaches your body endurance. But tonight, we make fire. The god of war gathered wood despite the downpour, selecting pieces from beneath fallen logs where they remained relatively dry. Harry watched, fascinated, as Kratos arranged them with methodical precision. How will they light? Everything's wet. Kratos didn't answer. Instead, he struck his blades together, creating sparks that caught the tinder with unnatural eagerness. The flames grew despite the rain, radiating heat that seemed to push back against the elements themselves. Divine fire, Kratos explained, noticing Harry's wide-eyed stare. It burns even in conditions that would extinguish mortal flame. Harry edged closer to the warmth, extending his small hands. Can I learn to do that? Perhaps. Your magic is different from my abilities, but not entirely dissimilar. Kratos studied the boy thoughtfully. Tomorrow, we begin your training. Training for what? For survival. For strength. For control. Kratos's golden eyes reflected the flames. For whatever comes. Harry's first lesson came at dawn. Stand, Kratos commanded, rousing Harry from his fitful sleep. Feet apart, back straight. Harry complied, rubbing sleep from his eyes. His glasses sat crooked on his nose, one arm held together with tape from Vernon's half-hearted repairs. These are the fundamentals, Kratos said, demonstrating a fighting stance. Balance is the foundation of all combat. Without it, you cannot attack. You cannot defend. Harry mimicked the position, his small frame a miniature echo of Kratos's imposing silhouette. Wider, Kratos instructed, nudging Harry's foot with his own. Center your weight. Feel the ground beneath you. For an hour, they worked on stance alone. No punches, no kicks, just the basic position from which all movement would flow. By the time they stopped for breakfast, berries Kratos had gathered and fish he'd caught with his bare hands in a nearby stream, Harry's legs ached, but he felt oddly accomplished. Was that magic we practiced? He asked, devouring the simple meal with hunger born of genuine exertion rather than enforced deprivation. No, Kratos replied. That was discipline. Magic without discipline is chaos. Harry pondered this as he ate. The Dursleys said magic wasn't real. That I was just a freak when things happened around me. They feared what they did not understand. Kratos's expression darkened. Weakness often masks itself as cruelty. After eating, they moved deeper into the forest, away from roads and towns. Kratos set a brisk pace, occasionally pointing out plants Harry should remember, which could be eaten, which could heal, which would cause sickness if touched. Your survival depends on knowledge, he said as Harry carefully noted a cluster of poisonous berries. Not just strength. That night, as they made camp in a small clearing, Harry's accidental magic manifested again. Frustrated by his inability to light their campfire using the flint Kratos had given him, Harry's emotions spiked, and the entire pile of wood erupted in flames so intense they singed his eyebrows. Kratos didn't flinch, even as Harry scrambled backward in alarm. I'm sorry. Harry yelped. I didn't mean, do not apologize for power, Kratos interrupted. But understand this, power unleashed without purpose is dangerous. He gestured to the violently blazing fire. You must learn to direct it, not merely release it. Harry nodded, heart still racing from the unexpected burst of magic. Close your eyes, Kratos instructed. Feel the fire. Not with your hands, with your mind. Harry obeyed, sensing the heat, the energy of the flames he'd created. Now calm it. Tell it to serve you, not consume everything. Harry concentrated, picturing the fire shrinking, becoming controlled. To his amazement, when he opened his eyes, the flames had settled into a normal, steady campfire. I did it, he breathed, looking to Kratos for confirmation. A beginning, Kratos nodded. Tomorrow, you will try again. With intention, not accident. 1 month into their nomadic existence, Harry stood barefoot by a stream, eyes closed, feeling the cool mud between his toes. His body had already begun changing, skin tanned from constant outdoor living, muscles firming from daily exercises Kratos demanded. Feel the water's movement, Kratos instructed from the bank. Then redirect it. Harry extended his hands, focusing on the current as it flowed around stones. The magic stirred within him, no longer frightening but familiar, a warm presence he was learning to call upon rather than merely react with. The water before his palms began to shift, dividing into two channels that curved around an invisible barrier he'd created. Good, Kratos rumbled. Now hold it while I throw this. A stone sailed toward Harry's head. Without thinking, he ducked, concentration breaking. The water rushed back to its natural flow, soaking his legs. Again, Kratos demanded. This time, maintain your focus despite distraction. They practiced for hours, Kratos increasing the challenge with each success. By sunset, Harry could split the stream while deflecting small objects Kratos hurled at him, sometimes with magic, sometimes with the physical movements Kratos had begun teaching him. That night, Harry collapsed by their fire, exhausted but exhilarated. Is this how you trained? As a Spartan? No. Kratos turned the rabbit he was roasting over the flames. Spartan training was blood and pain. Weakness was beaten out, not taught away. Harry considered this. Is that better? Being tough right from the start. It creates warriors, Kratos said. But not always wise ones. He handed Harry a portion of rabbit. I became the perfect weapon, but I broke under my own strength. You will be different. How? You will know when to fight and when to show mercy. Kratos's voice carried the weight of painful experience. Power without wisdom destroys everything it touches, including its wielder. Harry chewed thoughtfully. The Dursleys never showed mercy. Uncle Vernon said it was weak to be kind. Vernon was a coward hiding behind cruelty, Kratos stated flatly. True strength lies in choice. In restraint when restraint is harder than violence. These philosophical lessons became as much a part of Harry's education as the physical training. Kratos, who had destroyed gods in blind rage, seemed determined that Harry would wield his growing power with greater wisdom. By the third month, they had established a routine. Mornings began with physical training, running, climbing, basic combat forms. Afternoons focused on magical control, with Kratos devising increasingly creative challenges. Evenings were for hunting, foraging, and making camp, with lessons in strategy and tactics as they ate. Your enemy will not always be stronger than you, Kratos explained one night, using stones to demonstrate battlefield positions. But they may be smarter. Anticipation defeats superior force. Harry absorbed everything eagerly. For the first time in his life, he was praised for success rather than punished for existence. Kratos was not demonstrative, a grunt of approval was his highest commendation, but Harry learned to read the subtle shifts in his mentor's demeanor that signaled pride. Their first significant encounter with magical society came unexpectedly, as they traveled through a remote part of Wales. Harry sensed at first, a tingling awareness that made the hairs on his arms stand up. Something's there, he said, pointing toward what appeared to be an ordinary hillside. Something magical. Kratos narrowed his eyes, his divine senses confirming Harry's detection. Yes. Hidden from mortal view. They approached cautiously. As they drew closer, the hillside seemed to waver, like heat rising from summer pavement. Then, suddenly, they could see what was concealed, a small cottage nestled into the slope, surrounded by gardens filled with plants Harry had never seen before. A woman appeared in the doorway, wand raised defensively. She was perhaps 50, with steel-gray hair and sharp features that softened in surprise as she saw Harry. A child, she exclaimed. Then her gaze shifted to Kratos, and her wand arm tensed again. What manner of creature are you? I am no creature, Kratos growled. Harry stepped forward, instinctively placing himself between Kratos and the witch. He's my guardian. We mean no harm. We just felt this place. The woman studied them intently, wand still raised. You felt the magical boundary. But you're just a boy. How? Her eyes widened as they fell on Harry's forehead, where his unruly hair had parted to reveal his scar. Sweet Merlin. You're Harry Potter. Harry glanced back at Kratos, who gave an almost imperceptible nod. Yes, I am. The witch lowered her wand slowly. Everyone's looking for you. The Ministry, Dumbledore, they've been searching for months. We know, Harry replied simply. After a moment's hesitation, the woman gestured toward her cottage. You'd better come in, then. If you're out here with him, instead of where you're supposed to be, there must be a story worth hearing. Her name was Elara Blackwood, once a respected healer at St. Mungo's Hospital, now a self-described exile from Wizarding Society. Creative differences with the Ministry, she explained as she served them tea. I believed certain magical creatures deserved treatment. They disagreed. Eventually, I made myself unwelcome enough that retreating seemed wiser than imprisonment. Kratos remained standing, too large for the cottage's furniture, while Harry perched on a worn armchair. The house smelled of herbs and old parchment, walls lined with books that immediately captured Harry's interest. So, Elara said, eyeing Kratos warily, you've taken Harry Potter from his guardians. The Ministry calls it kidnapping. Dumbledore is more circumspect, but still searching. Care to explain? His guardians kept him in a locked cupboard, Kratos replied coldly. They starved him. Beat him. Called him freak for his magic. Elara's expression hardened. Dumbledore placed you with muggles? Harry nodded. My aunt and uncle. My mother's sister. Petunia Evans. That sour-faced girl. Elara looked genuinely shocked. Lily would never have wanted that. You knew my mother? Harry asked eagerly. Not well. She was much younger, but I treated her once at St. Mungo's, dragon pox, nasty case. Sweet girl, fiercely intelligent. Elara's gaze softened. You have her eyes. For the next hour, Harry peppered Elara with questions about his parents, the wizarding world, and magic itself. She answered patiently, occasionally glancing at Kratos with lingering suspicion that gradually faded as she observed his protective stance toward Harry. And you're teaching him? She finally asked Kratos. Without a wand? Without proper spells? I teach him to control his power, Kratos replied. To strengthen his body alongside his magic. To survive. Elara looked thoughtful. Unorthodox. But perhaps not unwise, given what may be coming. What does that mean? Harry asked. The witch sighed heavily. There are whispers, even in my isolation. Signs that darkness stirs again. The same darkness your parents fought. Voldemort, Harry said plainly. Elara flinched at the name. You know of him, then? We know he killed my parents. That he tried to kill me. That some think he's not truly gone. Child, you speak his name so casually. Elara shook her head in amazement. You've been raised differently indeed. Before they left, Elara insisted on examining Harry properly, a healer's prerogative, she declared. Her findings confirmed what Kratos had suspected. Years of malnutrition and neglect had affected Harry's growth, but his magic had compensated, keeping him alive and reasonably healthy despite the Dursley's treatment. Your magical core is extraordinary, she told Harry as she put away her diagnostic tools. I've never seen anything quite like it. So raw, so adaptive. She turned to Kratos. Whatever you're doing, it's working. His magic is integrating with his physical development in ways I wouldn't have thought possible. Before they departed, Elara pressed several books into Harry's hands, basic magical texts covering herbs, potions, and magical theory. If you're going to learn unconventionally, at least have some foundation, she insisted. To Kratos, she gave a small leather pouch. Healing herbs. For emergencies. The boy's resilient, but he's still human. As they prepared to leave, Elara placed a hand on Harry's shoulder. You should know, your parents were heroes. Not just because they died protecting you, but because they lived fighting for what was right. Remember that. Harry nodded solemnly. I will. And you, she addressed Kratos, whatever you are, wherever you came from, keep him safe. The future may depend on it. Kratos inclined his head, the closest thing to a bow Harry had ever seen from him. He is my charge now. None will harm him while I live. Elara's cottage became the first of several magical locations they discovered in their travels. Some they found through Harry's increasingly sensitive magical awareness, others they learned of from Elara, who maintained sporadic contact through enchanted messages that found them regardless of their location. The books she provided opened new dimensions to Harry's training. While Kratos couldn't teach specific incantations or wand movements, he could help Harry understand the theories behind them and adapt them to his wandless approach. Magic has rules, Kratos observed as Harry practiced levitating increasingly heavy objects with focused thought rather than spoken spells. But rules can be broken once understood. 6 months into their journey, they encountered their first serious threat. They had ventured into Scotland's Cairngorms, a mountainous region where Elara had suggested they might find a hidden glen frequented by magical creatures. What they found instead were wizards, a group of 4, wearing badges that identified them as enforcement officers from the Department of Magical Law Enforcement. We've got magical signature detection, one called as Harry and Kratos attempted to retreat unnoticed. It's him. Potter. What followed was Harry's first real combat experience. Kratos could have easily eliminated the threat, but instead, he used it as a teaching opportunity. Watch their patterns, he instructed as they took cover behind boulders. Each wizard has habits, favored spells, movement quirks. Identify them. Harry observed carefully as stunning spells blasted chunks from their stone shelter. The tall one leads with stunning spells, then follows with binding charms. The woman favors fire-based attacks. The older man hangs back, probably coordinating. Good. Now, how would you approach? Harry considered the terrain, the wizards' positions, their own strengths. They expect us to run or hide. We should attack instead, but smart, not head-on. Kratos nodded approvingly. Show me. Drawing on months of training, Harry circled wide through the rocks while Kratos provided distraction. The wizards, focused on the more obvious threat, didn't notice Harry flanking them until he unleashed his magic, not in wild bursts as he once might have, but in controlled, targeted pulses that disarmed 2 officers before they could react. The woman spun, firing a jet of flames that Harry instinctively blocked with a shield of pure magical energy, something he practiced countless times with Kratos, but never against actual fire. The shield held. In the moment of her surprise, Harry struck again, knocking her wand away with a precise magical push. Only the leader remained, backing away in shock at the sight of a 10-year-old boy controlling magic without a wand. What are you? The wizard gasped. Harry didn't answer. Instead, he channeled magic through his entire body as Kratos had taught him, enhancing his speed and strength. He closed the distance in a blur, executing a perfect sweep kick that sent the man sprawling. Kratos emerged from the rocks, collecting the stunned wizard's wands. Disarm but don't kill, he reminded Harry. These are not enemies worth blood. They bound the enforcement officers with their own magical ropes, leaving them with water and the knowledge that they would be found eventually by their colleagues. As they hiked away from the encounter, Kratos placed a heavy hand on Harry's shoulder. You fought well. Controlled. Precise. Harry beamed at the rare praise. I remembered what you taught me, observe first, then act with purpose. The wizards will send more after this, Kratos warned. More skilled. Better prepared. Then we'll keep improving, Harry replied with determination that made Kratos's lips twitch in what might almost have been a smile. The incident in Scotland marked a turning point. News of Harry Potter's abilities, fighting off trained ministry officials without a wand, spread through Wizarding Britain, transforming the search from a welfare concern into something approaching a manhunt. They fear what they don't understand, Elara explained in her next message. A child with wandless magic, accompanied by a being of unknown power, it frightens them. Rather than intimidate them, the increased attention drove Kratos to intensify Harry's training. They ventured farther afield, crossing to continental Europe where British ministry jurisdiction was weaker and tracking more difficult. In the Black Forest of Germany, Kratos began teaching Harry about his own divine origins. The gods of Olympus were not the only pantheon, he explained as they sat beside a mountain lake. Each realm has its powers, its deities, its hierarchies. Are there Greek gods here? In this world? Harry asked. Their influence is faint. Different powers hold sway. Kratos skimmed a stone across the water's surface. But divine energy exists in all realms. It simply takes different forms. He pointed to Harry's lightning scar. The mark on your forehead, it carries traces of death magic. Not unlike the power of Hades in my realm. Death magic? You mean when Voldemort tried to kill me? Yes. But also your mother's sacrifice. Kratos's voice softened slightly. She invoked ancient protection through her death. Blood magic. Life given freely to save another carries power that transcends mortal boundaries. Could I use that somehow? The protection she left? Perhaps. Kratos studied Harry thoughtfully. It already flows in your veins. With proper focus, you might channel it. The next phase of Harry's training incorporated this new dimension. Beyond physical combat and raw magical control, Kratos taught him to sense the different qualities of magical energy, particularly the protective power left by Lily Potter's sacrifice. Close your eyes, Kratos instructed during one session in a mountain meadow. Feel not just your magic, but the magic that was gifted to you. It has a different signature, warmer, tied to emotion rather than will. Harry concentrated, searching inside himself for the distinction Kratos described. At first, he felt only his own familiar magic, the current he'd learned to direct. But as he focused deeper, he sensed something else, a warm, golden energy that seemed to pulse with each heartbeat. I feel it, he whispered, eyes still closed. It's like being hugged. That is your mother's love, Kratos confirmed. A shield against darkness. Against death itself. How do I use it? Not by forcing it, as you might your own magic. This power responds to need, to threat. Kratos picked up a stick and approached. I will strike at you. Do not defend with your regular magic. Reach for the protection instead. The first attempt failed, Harry instinctively blocked with his usual defensive magic. The second and third attempts likewise. But on the fourth, when Kratos moved faster than Harry could consciously react, something different happened. The stick made contact with Harry's arm, but instead of striking flesh, it met an invisible barrier that flared golden for an instant before repelling the weapon with such force that it splintered in Kratos's hand. Both stood in momentary shock. That was it, Kratos confirmed, examining his palm where splinters had drawn divine ichor instead of mortal blood. The death protection. Harry stared at his arm where the stick should have left a bruise. It didn't feel like my magic. It just happened. Because true danger threatened. The protection awakens when needed most. Kratos brushed away the splinters. A powerful gift. We must learn when it manifests and how to call upon it deliberately. They spent weeks exploring this aspect of Harry's unique magical makeup. The protection proved difficult to summon at will, it responded most consistently to genuine threats, particularly those with dark intent. Yet gradually, Harry learned to access at least portions of it through deep focus and by recreating the emotional state of being protected and loved. It's strange, Harry admitted one evening as they prepared dinner after a particularly successful session. For years, I didn't even know my parents' names. Now I can feel my mother's love inside me, protecting me. Kratos, unusually reflective, stared into their campfire. I lost my daughter. My wife. By my own hand, deceived by Ares. The pain in his voice made Harry go still. Kratos rarely spoke of his past so directly. Their ashes are bound to my skin, my eternal reminder. Your mother found a better way to remain with you. Harry didn't know what to say, so he simply moved closer, sitting beside Kratos in silent companionship. After a moment, Kratos' massive hand came to rest briefly on Harry's shoulder, an acknowledgement of the bond that had formed between them, transcending blood and circumstance. As Harry's 11th birthday approached, their encounters with wizarding authorities grew more frequent and more dangerous. Twice they faced magical bounty hunters, not official ministry employees but mercenaries hoping to claim the increasingly substantial reward offered for information leading to Harry Potter's return. The first group they evaded easily. The second forced a confrontation that tested everything Harry had learned. They were camping in the French Alps when Harry's enhanced magical senses detected approaching threats, 5 signatures, moving with purpose rather than the random patterns of hikers or local residents. They found us, he alerted Kratos, who was already reaching for his blades. How many? 5, I think. Skilled. Their magic feels aggressive. Kratos nodded. We have 3 options, run, hide, or fight. Which do you recommend? These tactical decisions had become part of Harry's education, Kratos increasingly treating him as a partner rather than just a student. Harry considered their position. The terrain favors us. They don't know exactly where we are yet, just the general area. I say we set an ambush. Good. Where? Harry pointed to a narrow pass between rock formations. They'll have to come through there. We can be waiting above. They moved quickly, scaling the rocks to position themselves on either side of the natural choke point. Below, voices became audible, men speaking English with British accents. The tracking charm's strongest here. They can't be far. Remember, stun the boy if possible. Dumbledore wants him unharmed. The creature is expendable. Harry and Kratos exchanged glances across the gap. The plan was simple, Harry would create a distraction while Kratos attacked from behind. With the bounty hunters caught between them, they could neutralize the threat quickly. As the wizards entered the pass, Harry released a controlled burst of magical energy that caused rocks to tumble down in front of them, blocking their forward path. When they turned to retreat, Kratos was already there, blades drawn. Merlin's beard, one gasped. It's true, look at him. Wands ready, shouted another. Take him down first. Spells flashed toward Kratos, who deflected most with his blades and dodged the rest with divine speed. The wizards, realizing their target was more formidable than expected, spread out, trying to surround him. That's when Harry struck from above. Dropping into their midst, his body wreathed in visible magical energy, he landed in a fighting stance Kratos had drilled into him for months. Before the wizards could redirect their attacks, Harry unleashed what they had come to call his concussive pulse, a wave of pure force that sent 2 bounty hunters flying into the rock wall. It's the boy, someone shouted. Don't hurt him. That hesitation cost them. Kratos closed the distance to the leader, disarming him with a move too fast for human eyes to track. Harry engaged the remaining 2, using the environment as Kratos had taught him, leaping onto boulders, changing levels, making himself a difficult target while retaliating with precise magical strikes. One wizard managed to clip Harry with a cutting hex that sliced his arm. Blood welling, Harry felt a surge of hot anger, and with it, his mother's protection flared to life. The next spell the wizard cast rebounded spectacularly, striking its caster and transforming him instantly into a large, confused-looking toad. The last bounty hunter, seeing his companions defeated, tried to apparate away. Kratos, anticipating this, threw one of his blades with perfect timing, disrupting the wizard's concentration mid-spell and sending him sprawling. Within minutes, the fight was over. All 5 bounty hunters were incapacitated, though none fatally, a restraint Kratos had once been incapable of, but now maintained for Harry's sake. As they bound their unconscious adversaries, Harry examined his injured arm. The cut was shallow but stung fiercely. "Your first blood in real combat," Kratos observed, producing healing herbs from the pouch Alara had given them. "A warrior's milestone." Harry winced as Kratos applied the medicine. "I didn't expect the protection to activate like that." "Poor guy's a toad now." "Temporary, most likely." Kratos wrapped the wound with practiced efficiency. "You fought well. Used your environment. Maintained control despite injury." "We should move," Harry suggested, already thinking ahead. "They might have backup." Kratos nodded approvingly at Harry's tactical awareness. "Yes. We'll head south. Cross into Italy where their ministry has different priorities." As they gathered their minimal belongings, Harry caught Kratos studying him with an unreadable expression. "What is it?" "You're changing," Kratos said simply. "Becoming more than either wizard or warrior alone." Harry straightened, oddly pleased by the observation. At almost 11, he bore little resemblance to the frightened boy from the cupboard. His body had hardened from constant training and outdoor living. His confidence had grown alongside his skills. Even his magic had evolved, becoming less wild and more precise, an extension of his will rather than a separate force. "Is that good?" he asked. "It is necessary," Kratos replied. "For what may come." Italy brought new experiences. The magical community there regarded British concerns with polite indifference, allowing Harry and Kratos to move more openly, though still cautiously. In a small village in the Tuscan countryside, they encountered an elderly wizard who recognized Kratos not as a threat, but as something far more significant. "Dio Antico," the old man whispered, bowing slightly as they passed his vineyard. "Ancient god. You walk among us again." Kratos tensed, ready for confrontation, but the wizard merely smiled and offered them wine and bread. "My grandmother told stories," he explained as they sat in his kitchen. "Gods from other realms sometimes cross between worlds. It has happened before." He regarded Harry with bright, curious eyes. "And you bring a bambino divino, a godling. How interesting." "I'm not a god," Harry corrected. "Just a wizard." The old man laughed softly. "Perhaps not yet. But your aura speaks differently. It changes, evolves. Something more than wizard grows within you." That night, as they camped in an olive grove with the old wizard's blessing, Harry pondered the encounter. Could he be right? He asked Kratos. Am I becoming something different? Kratos tended their small fire thoughtfully. Gods are not born, but made. Some through birthright, others through deeds, still others through belief. He looked at Harry directly. You have power. How it shapes you, what you become, depends on your choices. But you killed gods, Harry pointed out. You hate them. I hated what they were. What they did with their power. Kratos's voice carried centuries of pain. Olympians were cruel, capricious, using mortals as playthings. I destroyed them because they deserved destruction. He prodded the fire with a stick. But godhood itself is neither good nor evil. It simply is. Power in its purest form. And if I someday have that kind of power? Harry asked, both frightened and fascinated by the possibility. Then you will face the choice all with power face, to serve yourself or to serve others. To protect or to dominate. Kratos met Harry's eyes steadily. I have walked both paths. Only one brings peace. The Italian wizard's observation seemed prophetic as they continued their journey. Harry's abilities continued to develop in ways that surprised even Kratos. His wandless magic grew more sophisticated. His physical capabilities exceeded what should have been possible for a child his age. Most notably, his magical aura, visible when he channeled significant power, began changing from its original pure white to a deeper golden hue tinged with crimson. Your mother's protection integrates with your own magic, Kratos theorized as they trained high in the Italian Alps. Two sources of power becoming one. Harry had learned to call upon this combined energy with increasing reliability. It enhanced everything: strength, speed, magical output, but required greater concentration to control. It feels different, Harry explained after a particularly intense session left him breathless but exhilarated. Bigger somehow. Like I'm tapping into something beyond myself. Kratos nodded, understanding better than most. Divine power feels thus. It connects to forces larger than any individual. Is that how your abilities work? Once. Kratos flexed his hand, red tattoo glowing faintly. When I served as god of war, Olympian power flowed through me. Now, my strength comes from within, forged through suffering, tempered by choice. Winter found them in Greece, a pilgrimage Kratos had long avoided but finally undertook for Harry's education. Among the ruins of ancient temples, Kratos shared more of his history than ever before. Here stood temples to Zeus, to Athena, to Ares. His voice carried complex emotions as they walked among fallen columns. Gods who ruled through fear, demanded worship, punished dissent. Harry listened, absorbing both the history and the emotion behind it. And you were one of them? Before you turned against them? I was their weapon. Then their adversary. Finally, their executioner. Kratos ran a hand along stone carved with scenes of gods and heroes. In my realm, these temples would have been grander, the gods more present. Here, they faded to myth ages ago. Do you miss it? Being a god? Kratos considered the question with surprising openness. No. Power came with chains. Freedom matters more. They spent weeks in Greece, training among ruins that resonated with Kratos' origins. Harry found his magic responding differently here, as if the land itself recognized something in Kratos and, by extension, in him. During a session at Delphi, where ancient Greeks once consulted the oracle, Harry experienced something unprecedented. While meditating as Kratos had taught him, focusing on his magical core, he found himself seeing visions, fragmentary glimpses of places he'd never been, people he'd never met. A castle perched on a cliff above a lake. A chamber deep underground, something ancient slumbering within. A mirror that showed not reflections but desires. A stone that glowed with internal fire. When he described these visions to Kratos, the god of war looked troubled. The oracle of Delphi showed glimpses of possible futures, he explained. This place may retain echoes of that power. What you saw could be portents. Of what? That remains unclear. But such visions suggest your power grows beyond conventional magic. Kratos studied Harry with new intensity. You become something neither your wizarding world nor my godly one fully encompasses. As spring returned and Harry's 11th birthday approached, they began a gradual journey back toward Britain. Both sensed a turning point coming, the age when Harry would be expected to enter formal wizarding education at Hogwarts. Will I have to choose? Harry asked as they crossed back into France. Between your training and their school? Perhaps not, Kratos replied. Different knowledge serves different purposes. What they teach may complement what you have learned, not replace it. But they'll try to control me. Make me what they want me to be, their savior, their boy who lived. Yes. Kratos didn't sugarcoat the truth. But you are stronger now. More aware. Better prepared to resist manipulation. They encountered more resistance as they neared Britain, not just ministry officials but members of what appeared to be private wizard organizations, some seeking to bring Harry back to the fold, others with darker purposes. During one skirmish in the French countryside, Harry faced a wizard wearing a silver mask who fought differently than previous adversaries, using spells that reeked of dark intent. Death Eater, the man hissed upon recognizing Harry. My lord will reward me for bringing your head. The fight that followed tested Harry's abilities more severely than any previous encounter. The Death Eater used magic designed to maim and kill, forcing Harry to rely on everything Kratos had taught him about combat survival. Kratos himself was occupied with two other dark wizards, leaving Harry to face this threat alone for the first time. The Death Eater's curse narrowly missed Harry's face, singing his hair. Another grazed his leg, leaving a burning gash. Fighting through the pain, Harry analyzed his opponent's patterns as Kratos had drilled into him, the slight pause before major spells, the tendency to shield left but not right. When the wizard cast what Harry recognized from his studies as the beginning of an unforgivable curse, Harry acted decisively. Channeling magic through his entire body, he executed a move Kratos called the Ghost Rush, seeming to vanish momentarily through sheer speed before reappearing inside his opponent's guard. The Death Eater's shock at Harry's supernatural quickness created the opening Harry needed. With precise magical control, he struck not with random force but with targeted intent, disrupting the wizard's magical core temporarily, just as Alara had taught him was possible during one of their visits. The masked wizard collapsed, his connection to his magic temporarily severed. Before he could recover, Harry bound him with conjured ropes, one of the few specific spells he had mastered without a wand. When Kratos, having dispatched his own opponents, reached Harry's side, he found the boy standing guard over the incapacitated Death Eater, injured but unbowed. "You faced a killer," Kratos observed, examining Harry's wounds. "And prevailed." "He mentioned his lord," Harry reported, wincing as Kratos applied healing salve to his leg. "I think he meant Voldemort. If Voldemort's followers hunt you directly, it suggests they believe their master may return." Kratos's expression darkened. "Or perhaps already has in some form." The encounter added urgency to their preparations. If Death Eaters actively sought Harry, the protections of Hogwarts might actually prove valuable, a consideration Kratos reluctantly acknowledged. "The school has ancient defenses," he admitted as they discussed options. "Even I would find breaching them challenging." "So you think I should go when I turn 11? "I think you should gather knowledge from all sources. Learn their magic while maintaining what we have built." Kratos looked Harry in the eye. "But never forget, you choose your path. Not them. Not prophecies. Not destiny." Harry nodded, determination evident in his posture. "I won't forget." Their final months together before Harry's 11th birthday were spent refining everything he had learned. Kratos drove him harder than ever, ensuring combat techniques became instinct rather than conscious thought. Harry's magical control reached new levels of precision, allowing him to perform complex manipulations that would have exhausted him a year earlier. Most importantly, Harry learned to move seamlessly between different aspects of his abilities, from physical fighting to magical attacks to defensive tactics, creating a hybrid fighting style uniquely his own. "You combine what I have taught you with your innate magic," Kratos observed during one of their final training sessions. "This makes you unpredictable. Dangerous to those who expect conventional wizard combat." The changes were evident in Harry's bearing as much as his abilities. No longer the hesitant, mistreated child from the cupboard, he moved with quiet confidence and purpose. His green eyes, once fearful, now assessed situations with tactical awareness beyond his years. Even his magical aura had evolved, the combined gold-crimson energy settling into a stable pattern that he could summon or suppress at will. As Harry's birthday approached, they made a deliberate journey to a small island off the Scottish coast, remote enough for privacy but close enough to Wizarding Britain that Harry's Hogwarts letter would find him easily. The night before his birthday, Harry and Kratos sat beside their campfire, watching waves crash against the rocky shore. Tomorrow would bring change, the official invitation to rejoin Wizarding Society, the decision about Harry's future education. "I've been thinking about what that Italian wizard said," Harry ventured. "About becoming something more than just a wizard." Kratos waited silently, allowing Harry to organize his thoughts. "If I'm going to Hogwarts, learning their magic while keeping what you've taught me, I'll be different from anyone there. Not just a student. Not just the boy who lived." Harry looked up at his mentor, the firelight reflecting in his eyes. "What am I becoming, Kratos?" Kratos studied the boy before him, no longer just a child, not yet a man, but already something unique in any realm he had walked. "You become what you choose," he replied. "But if you need a name for it." He considered carefully. "Where your magic meets combat prowess, where wizardry meets divine protection, perhaps you are becoming the god of magic and war." Harry tested the title silently, feeling its resonance. Not a boast or an empty claim, but a recognition of the path he walked, a path that combined Kratos's warrior ethos with his own magical heritage. "The god of magic and war," he repeated softly. "I like that." "Then make it true," Kratos challenged. "Not through proclamation, but through action. Through choice. Through the path you forge when others would direct you." Harry nodded, accepting both the title and the responsibility it carried. Tomorrow would bring his official entry into the wizarding world, with all its expectations and limitations. But he would enter on his own terms, carrying 3 years of Kratos's training and wisdom. He was Harry Potter, the boy who lived. He was Harry, student of Kratos, the ghost of Sparta. And he was becoming something entirely new, the god of magic and war. Whatever Hogwarts expected, they weren't prepared for what was coming. Chapter 3, The Clash of Worlds. Platform 9 3/4 buzzed with the usual first-day chaos, parents hugging children goodbye, students shouting greetings across the platform, owls screeching in their cages. Nobody noticed the ripple of magic that preceded the arrival of Hogwarts' most anticipated new student. Until they did. Harry stepped through the magical barrier without hesitation, Kratos a half-step behind him. The crowd went silent in an expanding wave, conversations dying mid-sentence as heads turned. "Holy shit, it's Potter. And that's the creature who took him." Harry wore simple clothes, dark pants, a fitted grey shirt, and the bracers Kratos had made him concealed beneath his sleeves. No robes, no pointed hat, nothing to mark him as a first year except the trunk floating silently beside him without visible support. Whispers erupted across the platform. Parents pulled their children closer. Several adults drew wands, though none dared point them directly. Kratos surveyed the scene with cold calculation, golden eyes marking potential threats and escape routes. His hand rested near his concealed blades, the massive muscles of his tattooed arms tensed for action. But Harry just kept walking toward the train, his stride confident and purposeful. The crowd parted before them like water around the prow of a ship. "Remember what we discussed," Kratos rumbled, his voice pitched low for Harry's ears only. "Observe everything. Trust carefully. Reveal little." Harry nodded. "I'll be fine. I'll be watching." Kratos clasped Harry's shoulder, a gesture that had become their version of an embrace. "Even when you don't see me." A wizard in ministry robes approached, flanked by 2 others with the bearing of aurors. "Mr. Potter," he said with forced politeness. "Welcome back to Wizarding Society. We've been concerned about your whereabouts." "No need for concern," Harry replied, his voice steady and clear. "As you can see, I'm perfectly well." The wizard's eyes flicked nervously to Kratos. "Yes, well, perhaps your companion should leave now. The Hogwarts Express is for students and their families only." Harry's expression hardened slightly. "Kratos is my family." Murmurs rippled through the watching crowd. The ministry wizard faltered, clearly unprepared for this assertion. "Regardless, the platform has certain security protocols, which don't apply to him," Harry interrupted. "Professor Dumbledore has already approved his presence. Take it up with the headmaster if you have concerns." The train whistle blew, saving the official from having to respond. Harry turned to Kratos one last time. "Winter break," he said. "Our usual training ground." Kratos nodded once. "Be vigilant. Trust your instincts. Remember who you are." With that, Harry boarded the train, his trunk still floating obediently behind him. The compartment he chose was empty, unsurprising, as students seemed to be giving him a wide berth, staring through windows as they passed but reluctant to enter. Kratos remained on the platform, a statue-like presence that drew stares but no direct challenges. As the train began to move, Harry caught a final glimpse of his guardian, standing tall and unmovable amid the sea of wizards, watching the train with golden eyes that promised he would never be far away. Then the platform slid from view, and Harry's journey to Hogwarts truly began. It took exactly 7 minutes for the first student brave enough to approach. The compartment door slid open to reveal a girl with bushy brown hair and a determined expression. "Is it true?" she asked without preamble. "Are you really Harry Potter?" Harry studied her, intelligent eyes, confident posture despite her nervousness, no obvious threat. "Yes," he replied simply. The girl entered without waiting for an invitation and sat opposite him. "I'm Hermione Granger. I've read all about you, of course. You're in modern magical history and the rise and fall of the dark arts and great wizarding events of the 20th century." "I know," Harry said. "I've read them too." This seemed to surprise her. "Oh. Well, that's good. Most of the accounts contradict each other about what happened after you disappeared. Some say you were kidnapped, others say you went into hiding for special training." Her eyes narrowed with curiosity. "Which is true?" "Neither. Both." Harry shrugged. "Depends on perspective." "And that person with you? The one everyone's whispering about?" "Kratos. My guardian." "What exactly is he?" Hermione leaned forward, academic curiosity overriding caution. "He doesn't look like any magical being I've read about." Harry almost smiled. "He's not in your books." Before Hermione could press further, the compartment door opened again. A pale boy with sleek blonde hair stood there, flanked by 2 larger boys. "So it's true," the blonde said, eyes calculating. "Harry Potter has come to Hogwarts." He stepped in uninvited. "I'm Malfoy. Draco Malfoy. This is Crabbe and Goyle." Harry assessed the newcomers with the silent efficiency Kratos had taught him. Malfoy, confident but untested, used to authority through name rather than ability. The others, muscle, not thinkers, loyal to power rather than principle. "You'll find some wizarding families are better than others, Potter," Malfoy continued when Harry didn't immediately respond. "You don't want to go making friends with the wrong sort." He glanced dismissively at Hermione. "I can help you there." He extended his hand. Harry looked at it, then back to Malfoy's face. "I choose my own friends," he said quietly. "Based on what they do, not what they're called." Malfoy's pale cheeks flushed. "You'll regret that, Potter. That creature you arrived with, my father says the Ministry's already discussing classifying it as a dangerous magical being. Regulation and control, you know." Harry's magic stirred at the threat, a slight golden shimmer briefly visible around his hands before he controlled it. "They can try," he said, his voice dropping to a tone that made even Malfoy's bodyguards shift uncomfortably. "But I wouldn't recommend it." Something in Harry's eyes, the absolute certainty behind them, made Malfoy step back. "We'll see how things stand after you're sorted," he muttered, retreating with his companions. Hermione stared at Harry with new wariness. "What was that? Around your hands just now?" Harry flexed his fingers, the golden energy completely contained once more. "Magic. But without a wand. And that color." Her academic curiosity visibly battled with caution. "Is that what you learned during your disappearance?" "Some of it." Harry decided a partial explanation might satisfy her enough to change the subject. "Kratos taught me to access magic differently than most wizards do." "Is he some kind of special magical tutor? From abroad perhaps?" Harry almost laughed at the idea of Kratos being described as a tutor. "He's a warrior who found me when I needed help. He taught me to survive, to fight, and to control my power." Hermione looked fascinated and slightly horrified. Fight? But you're just 11. Age doesn't matter much when someone's trying to kill you, Harry replied matter-of-factly. Their conversation was interrupted by a red-haired boy who poked his head in cautiously. Mind if I sit? Everywhere else is full. Harry gestured to the empty seat beside Hermione. The boy entered, eyes wide as they fixed on Harry's forehead. You're him, aren't you? Harry Potter. He blurted, then flushed. Sorry, I'm Ron Weasley. Yes, I'm Harry, he confirmed, growing tired of the recognition. And this is Hermione. Is it true you showed up with some kind of monster? My brothers were saying, he's not a monster, Harry cut in, his voice sharper than intended. His name is Kratos, and he saved me when no one else would. Ron looked taken aback. Sorry, mate. Just repeating what people are saying. Harry took a deep breath, centering himself as Kratos had taught him. It's fine. But don't believe everything you hear. The conversation shifted to safer topics, houses, Quidditch, and the candy from the trolley lady who came by. Harry purchased enough for all three, earning a surprised smile from Ron. As the train continued north, more students found excuses to walk past their compartment or peek in. Harry ignored the attention, instead asking careful questions about Hogwarts that his books hadn't answered. The staircases move, he asked, intrigued by Ron's casual description of the castle. That's strategically problematic. Strategically? Ron repeated, confused. They're just annoying when you're late to class. Multiple points of entry and exit, unpredictable terrain changes, Harry mused. Makes defending territory difficult. Ron and Hermione exchanged glances. You talk about Hogwarts like it's a military operation, Hermione observed. Harry shrugged. Kratos says any new environment should be assessed for tactical advantages and vulnerabilities. Sounds paranoid, mate, Ron said, biting into a chocolate frog. It's kept us alive, Harry replied without elaboration. The countryside grew wilder as they traveled north. Harry felt a growing anticipation, not nervousness, but a readiness for the next phase of his journey. Hogwarts represented new knowledge, new challenges, and perhaps answers to questions about his parents and his past that even Kratos couldn't provide. Dusk was falling when the train finally slowed. As students disembarked onto the platform at Hogsmeade Station, a booming voice called, "Furs years. Furs years over here." A massive man with a wild beard towered over the crowd, holding a lantern. Harry approached without hesitation, noting that while the man was extraordinarily large, he moved with the gentle caution of someone accustomed to managing his own strength, unlike Kratos, who wielded his power with deliberate, controlled force. Harry Potter, the giant exclaimed upon seeing him. Last time I saw you, you was just a tiny baby. Rubeus Hagrid, keeper of keys and grounds at Hogwarts. He extended a trash bin lid-sized hand, which Harry shook firmly. Dumbledore told me yeah might be a bit different from what people expect, Hagrid continued in a lower voice. Said I should tell yeah he's looking forward to continuing your conversation from London. Harry nodded, understanding the reference to their meeting at the Leaky Cauldron. I'm looking forward to it too. Hagrid led the first years down a steep, narrow path that opened suddenly to reveal a vast black lake. Across the water, perched atop a mountain, stood Hogwarts Castle, towers and turrets silhouetted against the starry sky, windows blazing with golden light. Harry felt a jolt of recognition. This was the castle from his vision at Delphi, seen exactly as the oracle's echo had shown him. The boats glided across the lake without visible propulsion, carrying the students toward their new home. Harry sat with Ron and Hermione, his senses alert to the magic surrounding them, ancient, layered, powerful in a way different from Kratos' divine energy or his own hybrid abilities. As they approached the underground harbor beneath the castle, Harry spotted a tall, severe-looking witch waiting for them. The Furs years, Professor McGonagall, Hagrid announced as they disembarked. Thank you, Hagrid. Her sharp eyes found Harry immediately, lingering on him with an unreadable expression. Follow me, all of you. She led them into the castle and paused in the entrance hall, delivering a speech about houses and the sorting ceremony that Harry half listened to while assessing the massive space, entry points, defensive positions, escape routes, out of habit. When Professor McGonagall left them briefly, the whispering began again. That's him, Potter, did you see the scar? They say he fought off ministry officials, wandless magic. Harry ignored them, focusing instead on the faint magical signatures he could detect from the great hall beyond, hundreds of wizards and witches, the concentrated power creating a background hum that reminded him of standing near electrical transformers. When McGonagall returned to lead them into the hall, Harry walked with measured confidence, neither hiding from the stares nor acknowledging them. The enchanted ceiling, a perfect replica of the night sky outside, caught his attention briefly, an impressive bit of magic he filed away for further study. The Sorting Hat's song elicited no reaction from Harry beyond mild interest. When McGonagall called, "Potter, Harry," the hall went silent instantly. Harry approached the stool, aware of hundreds of eyes watching his every move. As the hat descended over his head, he heard a small voice in his ear. "Fascinating, truly fascinating. I've sorted thousands of students, but never one quite like you, Mr. Potter." Harry remained silent, mental defenses raised as Kratos had taught him. "Oh ho! A clemency shields at your age? Impressive, though rudimentary. Don't worry, I'm not here to steal your secrets, merely to find your proper house." Then do it, Harry thought. "Not so simple with you, I'm afraid. You've been changed by your time with the Godkiller." "Yes, I know what he is. The Founders encountered beings from other realms in their time. History remembers little, but I remember all." The hat seemed to dig deeper. "Such courage, Gryffindor would welcome your bravery. Such strategic thinking, Slytherin would nurture your ambition. Such thirst for knowledge, Ravenclaw would challenge your mind. Even Hufflepuff would value your loyalty to your guardian. Just decide," Harry thought impatiently. "The question isn't where you fit, Mr. Potter. It's where you need to be to fulfill what you're becoming." "And what's that?" Harry challenged. The hat chuckled in his mind. "The god of magic and war, quite the title you've claimed. Or perhaps it claimed you. Then, more seriously, there's darkness ahead, young god in making. Enemies who will test not just your power but your purpose." Finally, the hat shouted aloud, "Gryffindor." The red and gold table erupted in wild cheers. Harry removed the hat and walked calmly to join his new house, taking a seat beside Ron, who had been sorted earlier. "Knew you'd be with us." Ron grinned, clapping him on the back. At the head table, Dumbledore's eyes twinkled as he watched Harry. Beside him sat a sallow-faced man with greasy black hair who stared at Harry with undisguised suspicion, and a nervous-looking man wearing a purple turban. As Harry's gaze fell on the turbaned professor, a sharp pain lanced through his scar, brief but intense enough that his hand instinctively rose to his forehead. "You all right, mate?" Ron asked. "Fine," Harry replied automatically, studying the professor more carefully. Something about the man's magical signature felt wrong, divided somehow, as if two separate energies occupied the same space. After the feast, Dumbledore rose for announcements, standard rules about forbidden forests and banned items, plus a cryptic warning about the third-floor corridor, for those who do not wish to die a most painful death. Harry's tactical mind immediately flagged this as significant. Why announce a deadly hazard to the entire school instead of simply sealing the area? It practically guaranteed curious students would investigate. As the prefects led them to Gryffindor Tower, Harry maintained situational awareness, noting passageways, portraits that might conceal secret doors, and the castle's overall layout. By the time they reached the portrait of the Fat Lady, he had already mentally mapped 3 alternate routes back to the Great Hall. The boys' dormitory contained 5 four-poster beds hung with deep red curtains. Harry's trunk waited at the foot of one, looking oddly mundane considering it contained weapons Kratos had insisted he bring, for emergencies only. As his dorm mates changed into pajamas, chatting excitedly about the year ahead. Harry moved to the window and opened it slightly. The night air carried a familiar scent, wood smoke and something distinctly Kratos. Harry smiled. His guardian had kept his word about watching, even from a distance. Breakfast the next morning brought the first direct confrontation with Hogwarts authority. Professor McGonagall approached Harry before handing out schedules. "Mr. Potter, the headmaster would like to see you before classes begin," she said crisply. "I'm to escort you to his office now." Harry nodded, having expected this. "Lead the way, Professor." As they walked through the castle's corridors, McGonagall spoke without looking at him. "Your arrival has caused quite a stir, Potter. The headmaster has spent considerable political capital arranging for your unusual circumstances." "I appreciate that," Harry replied neutrally. McGonagall stopped suddenly, turning to face him. "What exactly happened to you these past 3 years?" she asked, her stern facade cracking slightly. "We searched everywhere. Your parents would have," she cut herself off, composing her features. "I was safe," Harry answered. "Safer than I ever was with the Dursleys." Something flickered in McGonagall's eyes, regret, perhaps. "Yes, well. That situation was not what any of us intended." She resumed walking. "The headmaster will explain the arrangements we've made regarding your continued training." They reached a stone gargoyle, to which McGonagall said, "Sherbet lemon." The gargoyle sprang aside, revealing a spiral staircase that moved upward like an escalator. Dumbledore's office impressed even Harry, who had spent 3 years witnessing Kratos's divine abilities. Silver instruments whirred and puffed on spindle-legged tables. Portraits of previous headmasters watched with undisguised interest. A magnificent red and gold bird perched beside the desk, a phoenix, Harry recognized from his readings. "Ah, Harry. Welcome." Dumbledore rose from behind his desk, smiling warmly. "Thank you, Minerva. I'll ensure Mr. Potter reaches his first class after our chat." When McGonagall had gone, Dumbledore gestured to a chair. "Please, sit. Lemon drop." Harry declined the candy but took the seat, maintaining the alert yet relaxed posture Kratos had drilled into him, ready to move instantly if needed, but not projecting tension. "Your arrival yesterday caused quite a sensation," Dumbledore began. "I believe several students wrote to their parents last night, which means the Daily Prophet will likely feature you prominently tomorrow morning." "I expected as much." "Indeed. Which brings us to the arrangements we discussed in London." Dumbledore steepled his fingers. "I've informed the staff that you have permission to leave school grounds on weekends for continued training with your guardian. Professor McGonagall, as your head of house, will coordinate these excursions." Harry nodded. "And the other conditions?" "Space for physical training has been arranged, a secluded courtyard not currently in use. As for your guardianship situation." Dumbledore's expression grew more serious. "The Ministry remains concerned. However, I've convinced them to take no action for the time being, pending observation of your adjustment to Hogwarts." "They're still afraid of Kratos," Harry noted. "With good reason, I suspect." Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. "Few beings could have breached the blood wards I placed around your aunt's home. Fewer still could have evaded our search parties for 3 years." Harry said nothing, neither confirming nor denying. "Now," Dumbledore continued, "there's the matter of your unusual magical education. Professor Flitwick reports sensing significant magical activity when you entered the castle, wandless magic, performed unconsciously." "Not unconsciously," Harry corrected. "I was scanning the environment." Dumbledore's eyebrows rose. "Fascinating. And can you perform other wandless magic with similar control?" In response, Harry held out his hand. 3 of Dumbledore's silver instruments rose gently from their tables, orbited his palm once, then returned precisely to their original positions. "Most impressive." Dumbledore didn't look surprised so much as confirmed in his expectations. "However, at Hogwarts, you'll need to learn conventional wand-based magic as well. I understand Kratos took you to obtain a wand. Harry nodded. Their trip to Ollivanders had been memorable. The wand maker had been both fascinated and disturbed by Kratos's presence, and equally intrigued by Harry's unusual magical development. Holly and Phoenix Feather, 11 inches, Harry confirmed. Though Mr. Ollivander seemed troubled by it. Yes, I received his owl, Dumbledore said quietly. He informed me that your wand shares a core with Voldemort's, twin phoenix feathers, a most unusual connection. Harry absorbed this without visible reaction, though internally he flagged it as significant. Does that matter? Perhaps not. But I believe in neither accidents nor coincidences when it comes to matters of such magical significance. Dumbledore leaned forward slightly. Harry, there's something else you should know. The protection your mother left within you, the sacrifice that saved you from Voldemort, I sense it's changed. Integrated, Harry supplied. With my own magic. Yes, exactly. Dumbledore looked impressed by Harry's understanding. Under normal circumstances, that protection would have remained dormant until needed. But your training with Kratos, your development of wandless abilities, it seems to have activated the protection, merged it with your developing powers. Is that a problem? Not a problem, no. But it creates possibilities I hadn't anticipated. Dumbledore studied Harry thoughtfully. You're developing into something quite extraordinary, Harry. Beyond what prophecy suggested. Prophecy, Harry repeated. Kratos doesn't believe in prophecies. He says they're tools gods use to manipulate mortals. An interesting perspective from a former god, Dumbledore mused. Though in my experience, prophecies have power regardless of whether we believe in them. He sighed. The one concerning you and Voldemort is kept secure in the Department of Mysteries. When you're older, we will discuss it fully. Harry accepted this for now. Is there anything else, Headmaster? I don't want to be late for my first class. Just one thing. Dumbledore's expression grew more serious. While at Hogwarts, I ask that you attempt to be, at least outwardly, a normal student. Your classmates haven't had your unique upbringing. They might find some aspects of your abilities frightening. I'm not here to frighten anyone, Harry assured him. Just to learn. Dumbledore smiled. Excellent. Then I believe you have Transfiguration first period. Professor McGonagall doesn't appreciate tardiness, even with a note from the headmaster. As Harry stood to leave, Dumbledore added, oh, and please tell Kratos that the Forbidden Forest, while technically outside castle grounds, is still considered part of Hogwarts. His campfire last night concerned Mr. Filch greatly. Harry almost smiled. I'll let him know. The first weeks at Hogwarts established a rhythm unlike anything Harry had experienced with Kratos. Classes, mealtimes, homework, and social interactions all operated on fixed schedules, a stark contrast to the fluid, adaptable lifestyle he'd grown accustomed to. His classmates regarded him with a mixture of awe, curiosity, and wariness. The story of his arrival with Kratos had grown with each retelling, until some first years were convinced he'd shown up riding a demon while wielding lightning. The truth, as Harry discovered, was almost more disturbing to his peers than the rumors. When Ron asked what he did during his weekend training sessions, Harry answered honestly. Combat drills, survival skills, magical control exercises, he explained as they sat in the common room Sunday evening after his first weekend away. Today we hunted deer in the mountains north of here. Kratos is teaching me to track magical creatures by their energy signatures. Ron looked simultaneously impressed and horrified. You actually hunt animals? And eat them? How else would we eat in the wilderness? Harry asked, genuinely confused by the question. I dunno, conjure food? Buy it? Normal wizard stuff. Harry shrugged. Kratos says relying on magic for basic needs weakens you. If your magic fails, you should still be able to survive. Mental, Ron muttered, though with a hint of admiration. No wonder you're built differently from other first years. It was true, Harry's physique reflected years of intensive training. While not bulky, he possessed lean muscle definition unusual for an 11-year-old, and moved with a fluid economy that drew attention, especially during flying lessons. Madame Hooch had barely finished explaining how to summon brooms when Harry's jumped into his hand with such force it nearly pulled him off his feet. "Eager, Mr. Potter," she observed with raised eyebrows. "Let's see if your control matches your summoning power." When permitted to hover, Harry found flying came naturally, another form of physical movement enhanced by magical awareness. By the end of the lesson, Hooch pulled him aside. "Wherever you were these past years, they taught you excellent broom control," she said. "I'll be speaking to Professor McGonagall about a special exemption to the first-year no brooms rule in your case." Thus Harry found himself, to Ron's utter amazement, recruited as Gryffindor's seeker despite being a first-year. Youngest house player in a century. Wood, the team captain, announced proudly during Harry's first practice. "McGonagall says you're a natural." Harry approached Quidditch strategically, as Kratos had taught him to approach all new skills, analyzing the game's patterns, identifying weaknesses in opposing teams' formations, treating the broom as an extension of his body rather than a separate tool. His academic performance proved more variable. In classes requiring wand-based magic, Harry initially struggled to adapt his wandless techniques to the more structured approach. "You're overthinking it," Hermione advised during Charms, where Harry's feather stubbornly refused to levitate despite his perfect wand movement. "The wand directs your magic, but you're trying to do both, direct it mentally like you're used to, and with the wand." Harry considered this. "So I need to surrender control to the wand?" "Not surrender," Hermione corrected. "Channel through it. Let it focus what you're already doing naturally." The advice helped. Harry closed his eyes, feeling his magic as he always did, the warm current flowing through him, but instead of directing it with pure will, he visualized it flowing down his arm and through the wand. "Wingardium Leviosa," he said, and the feather shot to the ceiling with such force it embedded itself in the stone. Professor Flitwick nearly fell off his stack of books. "Gracious. A bit too much power, Mr. Potter, but the principle is correct." Potions proved challenging in a different way. Professor Snape made his dislike of Harry clear from the first class, peppering him with advanced questions and criticizing his technique despite perfectly acceptable results. "Fame clearly isn't everything," Snape sneered after Harry's potion matched the textbook description but earned only a grudging "adequate." Harry didn't react to the provocation. Kratos had subjected him to far more intense psychological pressure during training, which seemed to irritate Snape further. The most disturbing class was Defense Against the Dark Arts. Professor Quirrell's stuttering, nervous demeanor contradicted the wrongness Harry sensed in his magical signature. More concerning, Harry's scar prickled painfully whenever Quirrell turned his back, specifically when the back of his turbaned head faced Harry directly. After the third such incident, Harry stayed behind after class. "P.P. Potter?" Quirrell stammered. "Something you needed?" Harry approached cautiously, testing the strange dual energy he sensed. "Just a question about dark creatures, Professor. I've encountered several during my travels with my guardian." Fascinating, I'm sure," Quirrell replied, subtly maintaining distance between them. "Perhaps another tea time? I have a staff meeting." "Of course, Professor." Harry stepped aside, but not before noting how Quirrell avoided direct eye contact and how the strange magical signature intensified when Harry mentioned Kratos. That weekend, Harry reported his observations to Kratos during their training in the mountains. "A parasite," Kratos declared after hearing the description. "One being hosting another." They sat beside a small fire, the Scottish Highlands spreading below them. Harry had spent the morning demonstrating his progress with wand-based magic while Kratos observed with critical attention. "Like possession?" Harry asked. "Similar, but more physical. More permanent." Kratos prodded the fire thoughtfully. "In my realm, souls could be bound to hosts, usually the dead to serve the living, but occasionally the reverse. You think Quirrell is hosting someone else? Another wizard? Or something that once was a wizard? Kratos fixed Harry with a significant look. Your scar reacts to this presence. Harry nodded. The same scar I got when Voldemort tried to kill me. Neither needed to state the obvious conclusion. If Voldemort inhabits this professor, the school is compromised, Kratos stated flatly. You should not return. I can't just leave, Harry argued. If he's here, there's a reason. Something he wants. Your death, perhaps. No, Harry shook his head. If that were all, he'd have tried already. He's searching for something. The third-floor corridor Dumbledore warned about, it must be connected. Kratos looked grudgingly impressed by Harry's reasoning. Then we investigate. Tonight. You think I stay far from Hogwarts during the week? Kratos raised an eyebrow. I patrol the boundaries nightly. The centaurs have accepted my presence in their forest, though the unicorns remain wary. Harry smiled, oddly touched. I should have known. That night, after his dormmates fell asleep, Harry slipped from Gryffindor Tower. He wore dark clothes beneath his school robes, which he removed and shrunk to fit in his pocket once outside the portrait hole. The bracers Kratos had made him remained on his forearms, as always. Moving silently through the castle corridors, Harry employed every stealth technique Kratos had taught him, staying in shadows, timing movements between patrol patterns, using magic to muffle his footsteps. He reached the entrance hall without incident and slipped outside into the cool October night. Kratos emerged from the forest edge exactly as arranged. Despite his size, the god of war could move with surprising stealth when needed, navigating the open grounds without triggering the magical alarms Harry had detected during his first week. The third floor. Kratos confirmed as they re-entered the castle through a side door Harry had identified as minimally protected. Harry nodded. East Wing, according to what I've gathered from older students who tried to access it. They moved through the sleeping castle like shadows, Kratos adapting instantly to the environment despite it being his first time inside. At one point, they froze as Mrs. Norris, the caretaker's cat, prowled nearby, but Kratos simply stared at the animal with his golden eyes until it retreated with an anxious meow. The forbidden corridor was locked with a simple charm that Harry dispelled easily. Beyond the door, they found their first significant obstacle, a massive three-headed dog that filled the room, sleeping fitfully over a trapdoor. Cerberus. Harry whispered, recognizing the creature from Greek mythology. No, Kratos replied quietly. A pale imitation. Cerberus was twice this size and guarded the underworld itself. The dog's three heads stirred at their whispers, beginning to wake. Music soothes such beasts, Kratos murmured, recalling ancient knowledge. But we lack instruments. Harry thought quickly, then drew his wand. With careful concentration, he transfigured a loose thread from his sleeve into a small flute, not perfect, but functional. The simple melody he played, part of his broader education with Kratos had included basic musical training for morale during long wilderness journeys, caused the dog's eyes to droop almost immediately. Kratos nodded approvingly at Harry's solution. They approached the trapdoor cautiously, and Kratos lifted it while Harry continued playing. Darkness yawned below, with no visible bottom. I'll go first, Kratos decided. Continue playing until I signal it's safe. He dropped through the opening without hesitation. Seconds later, a faint golden glow emanated from below, and Kratos called softly, clear. Harry stopped playing and jumped down quickly, before the dog could fully wake. He landed on something soft, a large plant with tendrils that immediately began wrapping around his ankles. Devil's Snare, he identified, remembering his herbology lessons. It hates light and heat. Kratos had already freed himself by summoning the ethereal fire that powered his blades, illuminating the chamber with orange-gold light. The plant retreated from the divine flames, releasing Harry. The wizard's defenses are rudimentary, Kratos observed as they proceeded to the next chamber. They're not meant to stop someone like you, Harry pointed out. Or even talented adult wizards. They're designed to slow and identify, to know who tried to break through. The following chamber contained flying keys and broomsticks. Harry, drawing on his seeker skills, quickly identified and captured the correct key while Kratos watched with arms crossed, unimpressed by the magical security. Next came a giant wizard's chess set that required them to play their way across. Harry started to take a knight's position, but Kratos simply strode onto the board, grabbed two opposing pieces, a rook and bishop, and hurled them against the wall with enough force to shatter the stone figures. The remaining pieces backed away, allowing them passage. Subtlety, Harry reminded his guardian with a small smile. Chess wastes time, Kratos replied unapologetically. The next room contained a troll, larger than the chess pieces and armed with a club. Unlike the puzzle-based obstacles, this presented a direct combat challenge. "Allow me," Kratos said, drawing his blades. "No," Harry stepped forward. "I should handle this. Test my training." Kratos studied him for a moment, then nodded. "I will intervene if necessary." The troll roared upon noticing Harry, swinging its massive club in a deadly arc. Harry ducked and rolled as Kratos had taught him, coming up inside the creature's guard. Rather than using his wand, Harry channeled magic through his entire body, enhancing his physical abilities. With magically augmented speed and strength, he delivered a series of precise strikes to the troll's knee joints and hamstring tendons, vulnerable points Kratos had identified in larger opponents. The troll howled and stumbled, off balance and confused by the small human moving too quickly to track. Harry continued the assault methodically, avoiding the wild club swings while targeting weak points. When the troll finally collapsed to its knees, Harry delivered a powerful magic-enhanced palm strike to its temple, rendering it unconscious. The entire fight lasted less than 2 minutes. Harry stood over the fallen troll, breathing hard but uninjured. Kratos approached, examining Harry's handiwork with critical eyes. "Acceptable," he said finally, "high praise from the god of war. You maintained control. Used your environment. Exploited weaknesses without excessive force. Thanks." Harry wiped sweat from his brow. "Let's continue." The penultimate chamber held 7 potions bottles and a logic puzzle involving a fire barrier. Harry solved it quickly, identifying the smallest bottle as the one that would allow passage forward. "There's only enough for one," he noted, holding up the tiny container. "You go," Kratos decided. "I will find another way in if needed. Remember, observe first. This may be reconnaissance only." Harry nodded, drank the potion, and stepped through the black flames unharmed. The final chamber was smaller and contained just one object, a magnificent mirror with an ornate gold frame, inscribed at the top with reversed words, "Eris stra eru oit ube kafru oit anwosi." "I show not your face but your heart's desire," Harry translated, approaching cautiously. The mirror was another object from his Delphi vision. As he stood before it, he saw not just his reflection, but Kratos standing beside him. Behind them stood 2 figures Harry recognized from photographs, his parents, James and Lily Potter, smiling proudly. In his reflection's pocket appeared a blood-red stone that seemed to pulse with internal energy. Harry instinctively reached into his actual pocket but found nothing. Understanding dawned, the mirror showed the stone as his desire, which meant, "It's a hiding place," he whispered. "The mirror doesn't just show desires, it's concealing the actual object." Before he could investigate further, a voice spoke from the chamber entrance, not the way he'd entered, but another door previously hidden. "Clever boy. I wondered if you'd figure it out." Professor Quirrell stood there, but his voice held no stutter, his posture none of its usual nervous energy. His magical signature now made perfect sense. The wrongness Harry had detected was the parasitic presence Kratos had identified. "You're not alone in there, are you, Professor?" Harry said calmly, turning to face him fully. Quirrell smiled coldly. "Perceptive as well as powerful. No wonder my master is interested in you." He began unwrapping his turban. He's been most curious about the boy who survived his killing curse, only to disappear and return, changed. As the turban fell away, the back of Quirrell's head revealed a second face, flat and snake-like, with glowing red eyes that fixed on Harry with malevolent recognition. "Harry Potter," a high, cold voice hissed from the hideous face. "See what I have become. Shadow and vapor, forced to share another's body. Unicorn blood has strengthened me, but it is not enough. I need the stone hidden in that mirror to restore my physical form." "Voldemort," Harry acknowledged, his hand moving subtly toward his wand. His scar burned fiercely in the presence of the revealed dark wizard. "You recognize me. Good." Voldemort's unnatural eyes narrowed. "But you're not afraid. Interesting. And that power I sense within you, what has happened to the infant I failed to kill?" "I grew up," Harry replied simply, mind racing through tactical options. He needed to alert Kratos, but direct magical communication might be detected. "Yes, with a most unusual guardian," Voldemort continued. "Quirrell glimpsed him when you arrived. Not human, not creature, something else entirely. Something old." The red eyes gleamed with hungry curiosity. "What magic did you find, Harry Potter? What power protects you now?" Harry remained silent, subtly channeling magic through his body in preparation for combat. His mother's protection stirred within him, responding to Voldemort's presence. "No matter," Voldemort decided when Harry didn't answer. "Quirrell will retrieve the stone, and then I'll have eternity to unravel your secrets, after I finish what I started 10 years ago." Quirrell turned to face the mirror, studying his reflection. "I see myself presenting the stone to my master, but how do I get it?" "Use the boy," Voldemort commanded. Quirrell spun and gestured sharply. Magical ropes shot from his wand toward Harry, who reacted with the speed and precision Kratos had drilled into him. Rather than blocking with a shield charm, Harry sidestepped and countered with a wandless pulse of force that disrupted the spell midair. "Wandless magic?" Quirrell looked genuinely surprised. "At your age?" Harry didn't waste breath responding. Instead, he launched into the attack pattern Kratos had designed for opponents of superior magical knowledge but lesser physical capability. Closing distance rapidly, he combined magical disruption techniques with physical strikes, aiming to break Quirrell's concentration and prevent further spellcasting. The possessed professor stumbled back, unprepared for this hybrid assault. When Harry's hand made contact with Quirrell's arm, something unexpected happened. The flesh beneath his fingers blistered and cracked as if burned. Quirrell shrieked in pain, yanking his arm away. "Master, I cannot touch him. It burns." "Fool!" Voldemort snarled. "Kill him. Use magic." Quirrell raised his wand, but Harry was already moving, driven by tactical instinct and the knowledge that his touch caused his enemy pain. He launched himself forward in a technique Kratos called the Spartan Charge, magical energy enhancing his momentum as he tackled Quirrell to the ground. The effect was immediate and horrific. Wherever Harry's skin contacted Quirrell's, the possessed wizard's flesh smoked and disintegrated. Quirrell screamed in agony while Voldemort howled in rage. "Kill him! Kill him!" Harry maintained his hold despite the excruciating pain in his scar, understanding instinctively that his mother's protection, the death magic that had saved him as an infant, was now actively destroying Voldemort's host. Just as Quirrell's struggles began to weaken, the chamber door burst open. Kratos charged in, blades drawn and glowing with divine fire. Seeing Harry locked in deadly combat with the possessed wizard, he moved to intervene, but paused, recognizing that Harry maintained the advantage. "Harry!" Kratos called instead. "His soul, it's bound artificially. Like a fragment, not a whole." This confirmed what Harry had suspected from his readings on dark magic. Voldemort had somehow split his soul, making conventional death impossible. As Quirrell's body crumbled beneath his touch, Harry sensed the parasitic presence preparing to flee. "Kratos! He's escaping." The god of war reacted instantly, drawing on divine power he rarely displayed at full strength. The red tattoo covering his body blazed with internal light as he slashed his blades through the air, creating a barrier of godly energy that temporarily trapped the vaporous essence attempting to separate from Quirrell's disintegrating form. "What is this?" Voldemort's voice hissed, now disembodied but contained. "What manner of magic, not magic," Kratos growled. "Divine judgment." The spectral form writhed within the energy field Kratos maintained, neither fully corporeal nor fully spirit. Harry staggered to his feet, hands blistered from contact with Quirrell but still functional. "Can you destroy it?" Harry asked Kratos, his voice steady despite his pain. "Not completely. It is anchored elsewhere, multiple bonds I cannot sever without their physical sources." Kratos's golden eyes narrowed in concentration as he maintained the barrier. "But I can weaken it significantly." Voldemort's trapped essence seemed to recognize the true threat Kratos represented. The vaporous form condensed, gathering what power remained to it, then exploded outward with dark magical force that even Kratos couldn't fully contain. The barrier shattered, and the spectral remnant of Voldemort fled, but not before Kratos's blades, wreathed in divine fire, slashed through its essence, eliciting an otherworldly scream of genuine pain and fear. "He recognized what you are," Harry observed, watching the dark mist vanish through the ceiling stones. "Yes." Kratos lowered his weapons, the glow fading from his tattoo. "And now he fears what we both may become." The chamber fell silent except for the crackling of dying embers where Quirrell's body had been reduced to ash. Only his robes and the turban remained, along with the wand that had rolled away during the struggle. The stone, Harry remembered, turning back to the mirror. But before he could approach it again, multiple sets of footsteps echoed from the entrance. Dumbledore arrived first, moving with surprising speed for his age, followed by McGonagall and Snape. The headmaster took in the scene with one sweep of his piercing blue eyes: Quirrell's remains, the damaged chamber, Harry's injured hands, and Kratos standing battle-ready with weapons drawn. "I see we are too late to be of assistance," Dumbledore said mildly, though his power radiated through the room like heat from a furnace. "Though perhaps just in time for explanations." McGonagall gasped at the sight of Quirrell's ashes, while Snape stared at Kratos with a mixture of fear and calculation. "Voldemort was possessing him," Harry explained directly. "He wanted whatever's hidden in the mirror." "The Philosopher's Stone," Dumbledore confirmed. "Created by Nicholas Flamel to produce the elixir of life, granting immortality to its user." "Immortality," Kratos repeated with evident disgust. "Always the goal of those who deserve it least." Dumbledore's gaze shifted to the god of war. "Indeed. And you are Kratos, properly inside Hogwarts at last, though not under circumstances I would have preferred." "Circumstances aligned with necessity," Kratos replied without apology. The boy sensed the threat. "We investigated. And apparently confronted Lord Voldemort himself," Snape interjected, his voice cold but underlined with concealed shock. "You expect us to believe a first-year student and his guardian fought the Dark Lord and survived?" "Not just survived," Harry corrected, holding up his blistered hands. "Voldemort couldn't touch me without burning. My mother's protection." Dumbledore nodded slowly. "As I suspected. Lily's sacrifice left a mark on you beyond the physical, a protection in your very skin against the one who tried to kill you." He glanced at the remains of Quirrell's body. "Though I confess, I didn't anticipate such a dramatic manifestation." "What of the soul fragment that escaped?" Kratos demanded. "It remains a threat." McGonagall and Snape exchanged alarmed glances, but Dumbledore's expression merely turned graver. "You perceive that aspect of Voldemort's condition?" he asked Kratos. "Most interesting. Few wizards would recognize the signs of a fractured soul." "I have encountered similar abominations," Kratos stated flatly. "Those who split their essence to avoid the natural order of death. In my realm, such violations had consequences." A moment of silent understanding passed between the ancient wizard and the god of war, two beings of immense power recognizing a common enemy in Voldemort's perversion of natural law. "I believe," Dumbledore said finally, "that we have much to discuss. But first, Harry requires medical attention, and the stone must be secured." He turned to the mirror and waved his wand in an intricate pattern, causing the mirror's surface to ripple. A blood-red stone emerged and floated to his hand. "Professor McGonagall, please escort Mr. Potter to the hospital wing. Professor Snape, secure these remains for examination. I will accompany Kratos to my office, where we can speak more freely about what has transpired." Harry looked to Kratos, who nodded slightly, permission to follow Dumbledore's direction while he handled the diplomatic aftermath. As McGonagall led him away, Harry glanced back once to see Kratos and Dumbledore already deep in conversation, the god of war and the greatest wizard of the age, united by common purpose if not by common origins. News of the confrontation beneath Hogwarts spread through the school with the speed only possible in a castle full of magical teenagers. By the time Harry was released from the hospital wing 2 days later, the story had evolved into epic proportions. Harry and his mysterious guardian had battled an army of dark creatures before facing Voldemort himself in single combat. The truth, which Dumbledore shared only with select staff members, was kept from the student body. Officially, Professor Quirrell had suffered a magical accident while examining enchanted artifacts. The Daily Prophet reported his death as a tragic workplace incident, though hints of darker circumstances appeared in less reputable magical publications. Harry found himself the center of even more intense attention than before. Students whispered as he passed in hallways, first-years gazed at him with awe during classes, and even the Slytherins treated him with newfound wariness, all except Malfoy, whose sneers had acquired a more calculating quality. Ron and Hermione, having figured out Harry's nighttime excursion and its aftermath through a combination of dormitory absence and hospital wing visitation, cornered him in the common room his first evening back. "You actually fought you-know-who," Ron whispered incredulously. "And your guardian, Kratos, he's still here? At Hogwarts?" "Temporarily," Harry confirmed. "Dumbledore gave him quarters while they discuss security arrangements." "But what exactly is he?" Hermione pressed. "I've been researching magical beings all term, and nothing matches your guardian's description." Harry considered how much to reveal. "He's not from this world," he said finally. "In his realm, he was a god. The god of war, specifically." Ron's eyes widened to comical proportions. "A god? Like, an actual deity?" "That's impossible," Hermione declared, though with less certainty than usual. "Gods are mythology, not reality." "Tell him that," Harry replied with a small smile. "But yes, in his world, the Greek gods were real. He was one of them, until he changed his circumstances." "Bloody hell," Ron breathed. "No wonder the Ministry's terrified of him." Hermione looked thoughtful. "If he's really a god from another realm, that explains why my research came up empty. But how did he end up here? With you?" "I don't know exactly," Harry admitted. "He says something pulled him to this realm after he finished his business in his own world. He found me because my magic called to him somehow." The explanation satisfied his friends temporarily, though Harry knew Hermione would continue researching. He didn't mind, there was nothing in wizarding books about Kratos or his origins. Harry's weekly training sessions with Kratos continued, now with added dimensions following their confrontation with Voldemort. Dumbledore occasionally observed these sessions, his blue eyes twinkling with scholarly interest as Kratos guided Harry through increasingly advanced combat techniques combined with magical application. "The boy improves rapidly," Kratos noted during one such observation in late spring. "His magical control now extends beyond conscious direction." They watched as Harry, eyes closed in concentration, maintained simultaneous magical effects, levitating multiple objects at different heights while also sustaining a shield around himself, all without a wand. "Remarkable," Dumbledore agreed. "Most adult wizards never achieve such wandless capability," let alone the integration with physical abilities. Kratos grunted acknowledgement. He is becoming what he must be. And what is that, exactly? Dumbledore asked carefully. Something neither of our worlds has seen before. Kratos's golden eyes remained fixed on Harry's practice. The wizards call him their savior. In my realm, they would recognize a god in the making. God of magic and war, Dumbledore mused. A title with considerable weight. Titles matter less than actions, Kratos replied. What he becomes will be defined by his choices, not his power. On that, we are in complete agreement. Their philosophical discussions continued throughout the remainder of the school year. Though they came from vastly different backgrounds and wielded different types of power, Dumbledore and Kratos found common ground in their concern for Harry's development and the threat Voldemort represented. Soul fragments, Kratos growled during one such conversation in Dumbledore's office. Horcruxes, you call them. Abominations in any realm. Yes, Dumbledore confirmed gravely. I've suspected for some time that Voldemort created multiple such anchors. Your confirmation of the partial soul you encountered only strengthens this theory. In my world, the judges of the dead would punish such violations. Eternal torment in Tartarus. Our afterlife is less definitively structured, Dumbledore replied. But the natural order abhors such perversions nonetheless. The question remains, how many did he create, and where are they hidden? Kratos paced the office like a caged predator. The boy will be hunted as long as these fragments exist. Voldemort fears him now more than ever. With good reason, Dumbledore noted. Harry is developing abilities beyond what prophecy suggested, beyond what I anticipated when I placed him with his relatives, to my eternal regret. Regret changes nothing, Kratos said flatly. Action defines legacy. Indeed. Dumbledore stroked his long beard thoughtfully. And what actions do you propose regarding these Horcruxes? Hunt them. Destroy them. Then destroy what remains of Voldemort himself. A direct approach, Dumbledore acknowledged with a small smile. Though locating these objects may require more subtlety than destruction. Then we employ both strategies. You search with wisdom. I strike with force when targets are identified. The alliance forming between wizard and god, tentative but built on mutual respect and common purpose, would have significant implications for the coming conflict, though neither fully realized it yet. As the school year drew to a close, Harry found himself reflecting on how drastically his life had changed since Kratos had rescued him from the cupboard under the stairs. His first year at Hogwarts had confirmed what his guardian had always told him, knowledge was power, but power required wisdom to wield effectively. He had learned conventional wizardry while maintaining the unconventional abilities Kratos had helped him develop. He had made friends, primarily Ron and Hermione, but others who saw beyond his fame to the person beneath. He had confronted Voldemort and survived, not just through luck but through preparation and training. Most significantly, he had begun to understand what Kratos meant about becoming something neither world has seen before. The title, God of Magic and War, no longer seemed like mere words but an evolving reality, a path forming beneath his feet with each step he took. On the final evening before summer break, Harry sat with Ron and Hermione beside the lake, watching the giant squid bask in the shallows. Will you ride over summer? Hermione asked. Let us know what you and Kratos are doing. When I can, Harry promised. We'll be traveling again. There are magical sites Kratos wants to visit, places where different types of power converge. Mental, Ron repeated his favorite assessment of Harry's lifestyle. Most wizards just play Quidditch and do chores over summer. Harry smiled. We'll do some of that too. Just with more combat training and magical experimentation mixed in. And you'll be back next year? Hermione pressed. Even after everything with Quirrell and you-know-who? Of course, Harry assured her. Hogwarts has knowledge I need. And he glanced across the lake to where a tall, muscular figure stood at the forest edge, watching. Kratos says, "I'm safer here than most places, especially now that Dumbledore understands what we're facing." What he didn't mention was the conversation he'd overheard between Kratos and Dumbledore regarding disturbing magical signatures detected at various locations across Britain, potential Horcrux sites that would require investigation. Their summer travels would have purpose beyond training. The Hogwarts Express departed the following morning. Harry sat with his friends, enjoying the relative normality after a year of extraordinary events. As the Scottish countryside gave way to England's rolling hills, he felt Kratos' presence before seeing him, a flash of ashen skin and red tattoos as the god of war paralleled the train's path through forests and fields, never visible to any eyes but Harry's, yet always there. When they reached King's Cross Station, most students rushed to greet waiting families. Harry hung back, watching the reunions with interest but no envy. His family wasn't waiting beyond the barrier. His family would be meeting him elsewhere, away from crowds and curious eyes. "Harry!" Mrs. Weasley called, spotting him as she gathered her brood. "Won't you introduce us to whoever's collecting you?" "They're meeting me off-platform," Harry explained politely. "But thank you for asking." He said goodbye to Ron and Hermione, promising to see them in September, then slipped away from the crowd. Following instinct rather than explicit directions, Harry exited the station through a side entrance, found a secluded alley, and waited. Minutes later, Kratos appeared without sound or warning, simply there were moments before he hadn't been. "Ready?" the god of war asked, adjusting the massive blades on his back. With the end of term, he no longer concealed his weapons or his nature. Harry nodded, a smile spreading across his face. "Where to first?" "Albania," Kratos replied. "Dumbledore believes Voldemort's spirit fled there to recover. We will confirm, then begin our hunt." "For the Horcruxes?" "Yes. Fragmented souls cannot hide from death forever." Kratos placed a hand on Harry's shoulder. "Your training enters a new phase now. Not just combat and control, but hunting and destroying that which corrupts the natural order." Harry straightened, accepting the responsibility this entailed. "I'm ready." As they prepared to depart London using Kratos' divine methods of travel, neither noticed the unusual weather pattern forming high above, a convergence of clouds that swirled in patterns no meteorologist could explain. In Asgard, Odin's ravens returned with news of a Greek god walking Midgard with a child of growing power. In distant realms beyond mortal knowledge, ancient entities stirred at the emergence of a new divine signature, neither fully god nor fully wizard, but something unprecedented. In the Department of Mysteries, a prophecy sphere glowed briefly, then cracked, its contents no longer fully applicable to the changing destiny of the boy who lived. Harry Potter was becoming more than a wizard destined to face a Dark Lord. Harry Potter was becoming the god of magic and war. And gods write their own destinies. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.